Hi, I'm John Carpenter, and you will see me in The Thing expanded documentary.
U.S. number 31 calling MacLeod, urgent.
Come in, over.
Did you notice anything strange about the dog? Anything at all?
Strange? No.
What the hell happened here? Looks like something buried under the ice.
What we're talking about here is an organism that imitates other life forms.
Somebody in this camp ain't what he appears to be.
Benny's was right there, Mac. I swear to God it had a hold of him.
It could have imitated 1 million life forms on 1 million planets.
There was one of those things out there trying to imitate him, Gary. We gotta burn the rest of them. Nobody trusts anybody now.
So how do we know who's human?
There's some kind of test, Doc.
We're gonna draw a little bit of everybody's blood.
You ain't tying me up.
Then I'll have to kill you, child.
You gotta be kidding.
We gotta bring this whole place right down into the ice. We're not getting out of here alive. But neither's that thing.
I'm most proud of this movie. I wouldn't change a frame of it.
Good morning, campers. It is Monday. It is the week before, well, Labor Day, right? Yeah, Labor Day is next week. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm Tom Connors. We have the boss man, Andre, with us. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Oh, that's right. It's American Labor Day next week. We're going to work so hard. We're going to get everything ready and set up. It'll be perfect.
He wants to put me in the nut house. I think that's what it is.
Well, I mean, it is Labor Day. He's got a point. It's got
Yeah,
labor.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd never
encourage
work
this
harder
shit.
than on European Labor Day. I don't care what everyone else does. They can all go and parade for communism all they want. I mean, Labor Day, that's the day for working. That's a tradition we're going to do in America as well. So, yeah, that's how it is.
Labor.
Yeah.
We also have with us Culture Casino. How you doing?
Hi, everybody. I'm great. It's a wonderful Monday, unless you're the Crow. Oh, man, what a box office. Can't wait to talk about that. And I'm glad to see one of my favorite pals here, Chris Braley. Good to see him.
We have Chris Braley of Bleeding Fool. How you doing?
I'll only correct you once. It's Brawley.
Brawley. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I'm going to say it the wrong way anyway.
That's okay.
Yeah,
I never learned,
my
Chris.
mistake.
Yeah. Just remember, if you say it the wrong way, there's going to be a brawl. So say it the right way.
That's it.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh. Clutch
Well,
Casino. I'm going to call you Clutch.
That's fine. You never correct Mr. H when he says it wrong. How come?
He's corrected it. Nope. You'll hear him. He
All
corrects
right.
himself. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, as long as I'm not singled out, apparently.
Let's not make this about me.
Yeah, no,
I'm
there was a
happy.
brawl behind the scenes.
We also
No,
have
that's-
Paul
he's gonna say
Chato
it
with us.
correctly.
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
What
Paul.
are you eating this morning?
And
Porridge?
Canada's Labor Day is also September 5th. It's not like Europe, which has May Day, which is actually a Soviet extraction.
Yeah.
Yep. Correct.
Interestingly enough, a direct Soviet thing that they're celebrating, because there's nothing better than to support Stalin, who killed 40 million people.
But this is why I'm saying that the only way to celebrate that day, the Soviet Commie Day, is by taking it literally and working our asses off this day instead of going in the streets and parading for socialism, which is what you usually do in European Labor Day.
Oh, they do
will have
it.
none of that, which is why we're going to work.
The only good thing about September 5th is that's my anniversary.
Oh,
Hey,
Congratulations.
so that's a Thursday. That's an interesting date. So it falls on the 5th of September every year.
Yes, Labor Day falls on the 5th of September every year.
In America, we just like to extend our weekends. So it's a moving target, whatever that first Monday is.
That means you get Friday off too.
Or at least half of it, right?
I can't stand those moving target days like Easter. I never know when Easter is because, unfortunately, we no longer keep track of the moon and all of that kind of stuff, meaning that I just have to use the calendar every single year.
I found that out for the
born.
first time last year. Yeah, sorry.
What?
Yeah. I know that
that goes by the moon phase.
Yep.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
I was
but
actually
always
born
remember
on
March
this week.
31st is Transvisibility Day in America. So
wow.
easy to confuse that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Today
well,
is National
that's one of
Dog
them.
Day in America.
Because
Really?
there's nobody more invisible than a 6'6" woman in lipstick and size 13 heels. Nothing.
With an
Really.
XY chromosome. So
Yeah, punching out a woman. There's really nothing like that. Now it's a fun time. What can I
holidays are
say?
fun. I really like that, Andre, because Flag Day, you sort of honor the flag. Christmas, you honor Christ. Labor Day, you should honor labor and do it.
Exactly.
I totally agree. I'm going to do
Exactly.
that.
Especially since Stalin said today we're going to honor the revolution, which is why, no, we are not going to honor that.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, we should be honoring the people who work to create the stuff that we consume, and many of us are laborers. So it's just that it's taken a very unusual turn. But on the other hand, I've often said that unions are a punishment for bad management.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and
speaking of punishment, there's some punishment going on at the box office. Before we get to that, though, greetings to everyone else who's watching, because we haven't greeted you guys yet, and we have 500 watching so far. Everyone, please smash that like, as Dr. Longdongler is saying right here,
with a pound 99.
Help share that the fact that we are live, because we are in fact earlier than usual today, and I'm sure many will get something of a heart attack because we're not supposed to start until 5 past, but today we actually started on the hour, which is rare for us, but maybe it's a habit we will try to continue.
Which is why we padded the beginning of this with idle, useless chatter.
No, we usually do that anyway when you're here. But
wow. Wow.
Well, with that, let us get into the office.
We've got Ruby Hoove here who gifted a membership. Thank you, Ruby Hoove. Libra Wolf as well has been here for 15 months. Thank you so very much. And then we've got on the topic at hand, Hyperguyver 2 says, last time we saw a bomb this big, we dropped it on Japan twice.
Oh, wow.
Oh, too soon.
Big swings.
Tsunami, indeed.
Big swings.
And then before we get into the topic at hand, we'll get back to the other super chats and do time. But Patrick Robinson with $4.99 brings up the crow in the room anyway. I saw the crow over the weekend, was nowhere near as bad as people made it, and I'm a huge fan of the original and comic. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Well, I'm thoroughly glad that you enjoyed it. I, on the other hand, did not, without getting too deep into it right at the moment. But let's see what's going on at the box office first before we get into that, because I know at least 2 or 3 of us have seen the film.
Okay, I'm just going to say this, Tom. This is the first time that I can recall that they actually canceled my ticket for the early screening.
Yeah, and I kept telling Andre this, even though he says in the video they started canceling shows on Friday. I kept telling him, a couple of you guys got your shows canceled Thursday night.
Yep, I got my ticket refunded because they canceled the show. I was like, come on.
So they were already canceling shows after the first showing, or they weren't getting enough tickets sold to sustain the shows that they had.
Honestly, it was just going to be me and one other person the last time I'd checked on the theater.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Watch it. So, look, it came down to nobody wanted this movie, right? There was no audience for this movie. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. By everybody's estimation, I can't agree that it had redeeming value, but that's a whole other matter. What I'll say is the numbers speak for themselves, and we'll get there because we can't even start off with it in the top 5. You got
no, but look what came back at the top there.
Yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine back up on top. 5th weekend that it's been at number 1, over $577 million total gross domestic reach, and it still stayed on top despite losing 120 more theaters. So it's already fallen out of its original release size. But internationally, the numbers are big. You got 1.2 billion. This is going to reach that 1.3 billion mark that I thought it would fall into, but barely before it leaves theaters. And look, this is the best. This is the best R-rated film ever across the board. It actually performed a little bit better internationally than I anticipated. And
I think it might hang on longer than you think, even though it will have competition with Beetlejuice. But
yeah, but not much. I just think people stopped going to theaters, which we'll get into at the very end of this conversation. But the second place thing is not surprising, but at the same time is surprising because Alien Romulus stuck it out, stayed in second place, earned another 16 million, putting it at 72 domestic, which gets it real close to the budget. Although really the film, because of the tax rebates involved, really only cost them 50 million to produce because it was done in Hungary.
No, Junior.
Yeah, at a legendary, well regarded location, Origo Studios, they did a lot of things there. But it's at 225 million. It is about to make a profit, believe it or not. In fact, it might already be in profit now.
I absolutely believe that it will be in profits, and I'm very happy for them. Like, I didn't love the movie. It's gonna take me some time to reconcile it because I didn't hate it because of the movie itself, but because of the association with Prometheus and with Alien Covenant. Now, I can get over that, but I have to wonder, is Disney happy with these results? Because I have to be honest, like, to me, these numbers for Alien Romulus are relatively middling. Because honestly, we know that this movie right here, Alien Romulus, it is the second highest opening Alien movie ever, unadjusted for inflation. Attendance-wise, it's doing the same thing as Alien Covenant. It's performing right in line with Alien Covenant.
Which is exactly good.
With the only difference is that it's holding up better in its second weekend drop than did Alien Covenant, which I think is a testament to just how badly Alien Covenant was edited. I've actually done a fun experiment the last couple of weeks because I hated Prometheus upon release. I hated Covenant upon release. and then I rewatched them now, but I rewatched fan-edited extended versions, which have reincorporated all of the deleted scenes back into the movie. These are the deleted scenes that never ever should have been cut, and I've watched like the scenes that were actually taken out of the movie and put on YouTube. You know what happened then? The movies actually became pretty decent. Unbelievably, they became pretty decent. Because of that, I am now better able to reconciliate those movies with the rest of the franchise. But so I'm like, why the hell haven't they re-edited these movies and put out some kind of like extended cuts?
Because it's the only versions of his movies that he hasn't done it yet too, and I still don't think it'll fix it because fundamentally I think they're bad. I still think I think they're bad fundamentally still at the core just because of what they represent. But that's just me.
Yeah, and that's fine. But still, if there's any Ridley Scott movies that need different versions, it's Prometheus and Covenant. And as for Romulus, I have to be curious though. Do you guys think that Disney will proceed with more Alien movies? Because I feel like they're big franchise movies this year.
Well,
Alien is their least performing one. And they don't have any other transmedia thing. There's no parks or anything like that. For everything else, you have the parks. You can have, but you don't have like Alien Land in Disney World.
You actually had an extraterrestrial attraction that was kind of loosely based on Alien that they couldn't call Alien back in the 90s, actually in Disney World. and I think in Disneyland as well. But they converted that to a Stitch attraction, and then they just like tore all the insides out. But
I think it would be great if they had a haunted house section. They have the haunted mansion. Wouldn't it be great if Disney After Dark sort of built this more geared towards teens and up, and it was all the scary stuff that?
Well, if they were smart, they'd compete with Universal and do something like that. Yeah, they'd take all their more adult horror franchises that they do have and do like Halloween nights and stuff like that. But
to Andre's point, the fan edits, I want to see those because I liked the assembly cut of Alien 3. I didn't like.
Oh, I'll hook you up with it. No problem.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like.
You still can't cut out the fact that the blue people destroyed everything. Like, I mean,
yeah,
I really don't see how you can fix that. And Covenant, regardless of the two scenes, it's still just a shitty remake of the original film at the end of the day.
Wow.
Just like this is, from what it sounds like.
Romulus is, right?
A little bit better, maybe, but
look. I mean,
dare I say it had a more competent director?
Yeah.
Oh,
Eddie Alvarez.
Fired.
Well, he did a good job. They used practical sets, practical effects. Even the puppeteering of the alien itself was amazing. They used a physical actor for the Offspring, a 7-foot+ basketball player, to play that role. I mean,
let's get past Alien anyway.
Oh yeah, okay, sorry. It's easy for me to dwell on it because it performed it almost as well as obviously Deadpool and Wolverine, but it ends with us, makes it into its third week. And it does so
actually
pretty well.
I was going to say that's if you want to get real technical about it, that's horrible that it fell behind Deadpool and Wolverine in its second week. And that's kind of what Andre's saying is at best, this is performing middling. So yeah.
I would have, except I would have expected it to fall off this much. And
I wouldn't have. I would have expected to hang on to the first place for another weekend or two until Beetlejuice came out. Although
maybe.
I did predict this was going to happen.
Yeah, I saw this coming too. And one thing I will say, and most people don't realize, is this will be, after this week, the highest recorded horror film for IMAX as of this week. It will eclipse any other competition for IMAX screens.
If you consider it a horror film, I guess.
I don't know what else you'd call it.
I used to call it sci-fi, but whatever.
Well,
and then it ends with us as hanging in there.
Yeah,
which is nice for Blake, I guess.
Yeah, it is. But look, these two people did not get along, and this is set up for sequels, believe it or not. So I don't know how they're going to do that, but good luck to them. It did fall off 51%. It's going to continue to drop. This, at the end of the day, made Sony money, and that's all that matters, I guess, at this point. But 11 million is disappointing. Speaking of disappointing, Amazon thought they could buy a studio and become a studio. Boy, are they wrong. Blink Twice opened at 7 million in fourth place with, what is that? Tatum.
Gambit himself.
Yeah. Let me tell you, that's not working out very well. And you were a studio executive, Paul. Do you think Amazon successfully become a studio?
I was a sitcom exec. Please do not accuse me of being.
I don't think they really give a shit about this. I think Amazon's the only ones who's still sticking with the whole idea that putting these movies in theaters is basically just advertising for them when they hit the streaming service.
That's possible.
At the end of the day. I really do. And they're not going to quit because that's why they bought MGM. Right.
Yeah, but it'd be stupid to sequester the MGM brand to streaming. It's not how we view it.
Which is, I don't think that they're doing. That's what I'm saying. Is
this is if they were smart, they'd actually go MGM Amazon as opposed to the other way around and stop, waving their dicks around.
Well, no, I don't disagree with you there, but I mean, Blink Twice basically being in theaters, they basically got paid to advertise it.
Well, Paul, I look forward to I look forward to your conversation with Jeff Bezos and tell him to get his ego out of the way. I feel like that's a phone call. That's a phone call I want to hear. I'm just saying.
Jeff, listen to me.
Yeah, he did really well setting up this, structured monopoly.
What strikes me as weird before we get to the obvious one that we're going to talk about this morning is you've got Despicable Me 2 or 4, sorry.
Yeah.
Beating Inside Out 2, which Despicable Me 4 is actually on video on demand already.
Yep.
So Inside Out 2 is falling off a bit.
Yep.
And both of those kids' films got beat by an anniversary release
of Coraline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That stuck out to me a little
Yeah,
bit.
but
there.
look, I mean, we could talk about The Forge, which nobody cared about. You could talk about Twisters, which is slowly dying. And you could talk about that Fathom release, right, of Coraline, the anniversary. But you have to get to number 8 before a movie that opened in theaters, in the midst of controversy.
Well, is there anything else that I have to say about anything else before we get to The Crow?
No, what you want to say something about? Okay, what do you have to say about The Forge?
Well, I
The
just
film?
figured,
Yeah.
Forge I could care less about.
Yeah.
I just think it's kind of interesting that Coraline, a film that is celebrating an anniversary, it's the 2004 film or whatever from Tim Burton and the director of Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
And it did $5 million in its
in
re-release.
its second week.
Second week.
Forget about
Second week also. Yeah, you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
Well, and the reason I want to bring this up is because this goes to the reason we keep saying re-release films. You know what sucks? I tried to find how much The Crow re-release made this year earlier in May when it had a 2-day re-release. I couldn't find the numbers.
Really?
I'm almost curious if it did better than the remake did.
I think the networks need to re-release classic shows.
Yes.
and put them out a week at a time on that specific date as if they were run for the first time. I don't know why the networks don't do that.
They really should.
I don't need to see American Ninja fucking Warriors one more time.
They kind of do with those new like live streaming channels. You're basically I mean, why marathon a lot of shows, but
but why should they get the benefit of it? But I mean, I'm saying anyway. That's another topic. I'm sorry.
No, I agree with you, and
you're
I
right.
say they should, but like, as far as this goes, like, okay, so Crow. But I just thought Coraline was kind of important to bring up because as we bring up time and time again, if the studios would release some of these films like they used to, they might actually benefit from it. And I think that's a good example.
The other thing that is important to mention is that this is really the first time I've seen a slate that kind of looks like something that if I went to a cinema, I'd go, oh, okay, what do I want to watch? They have been so bereft of product that this suddenly felt like a cinema week.
And I guess Inside Out 2 did hit video on demand last week, but still Despicable Me 4 has been there longer. But
it's still something that you have a choice to,
But an old kids movie still beat it in its second week. It was the point.
Yeah. I mean, and I've been looking at these numbers, and I have to say that The Crow is just an embarrassment. It was.
Well, let's get into it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's in 8th place. I
haven't seen a film open that bad in wide release since I don't know when.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because if again, Tom, you were correct to point out Coraline, because Coraline's only in 1,422 theaters, and it still beat out The Crow, which was in 1,300 more theaters. This is bonker sauce. 4.6 million. They couldn't, but Paul.
Yeah, I agree with you.
They couldn't make $5 million on a brand new release of something that is tied to a cult classic.
Yep.
You think this would have been in the top 5?
Well, I think I know problem number 1. Okay, problem number 1 is that most people didn't even know this movie was out. Okay, because if you go to our video we dropped this morning, because we already have a post-mortem out for this video because it was DOA. Like a good portion of the comments are like, I didn't even know this thing was out. Not that they necessarily were planning on going to see it. That was their next comment. But and I think that's because the only advertising this movie has gotten, and Andre covered this in our video, is $15 million that Lionsgate put into this for advertising. That's it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So just think about that. 15 million for advertising. By contrast, Borderlands, also by Lionsgate, they put 30 millions into advertising that. So twice as much money was spent advertising Borderland as was spent advertising this movie, which tells me in both cases, Lionsgate knew they had a bomb on their hands, and they only used the contractual minimum amounts. Now, I don't know this for a fact. I'm just looking at the roundness of the amounts, And in both cases, it would appear that Lionsgate just used the minimum amount they could get away with. I'm sure that if they could have advertised Borderlands for 15 million, they would have done that as well. Probably they couldn't. This is the thing here. And Putin's cat points out that the 1994 movie did 11 million in its first week, and that was 11 million in 1994 dollars with 1994 prices. So that's like 30 million today.
And I bet it got released on half the screens too. I bet, because I don't even remember I don't think Crow got as wide a release as most movies did. I could be wrong on that, the original one, but because it was a Miramax film and they were still kind of, small yet at that time. But no, okay, so a couple of us have seen the film. I don't know. Did you see it yet, Culture, or not? Okay,
yeah.
So 3 of us have actually seen the movie.
Yeah, let's get the reviews going. Culture.
Look, it's nothing like the original in any way. It's solely focused on the chick who was, race swapped, etc. It was solely focused on that. It was for an action film. It had very little action. None of that really happened until the third act in a big way, and none of it was satisfying because you'd seen almost all of it in the trailers. I think that at times the effects were okay, but there were moments where I just felt like the cinematography was god awful. It didn't really flow like the previous film. I'm having a hard time saying positive things about it, so I'm just going to say it was in focus most of the time. That's it.
That is and that of course is a stunning review. Yeah,
bravo.
Yeah,
I thought it was just sort of it was a shorter movie, but it dragged on. It seemed like a mashup between Angel Heart and Batman Begins.
Oh,
low budget, very esoteric. I'm kind of tired of Bill Skarsgård now. I think he's been seen too much. I don't mind the race swap, if you will. I just didn't think the couple had any chemistry. And it was just a dour. The whole movie was just dour, and the soundtrack sucked. Just the truth is, when it pales in comparison from the 1990 movie in almost every conceivable way. And I know you had a super chat or one of your subscribers say that they were a fan of the original O'Barr comics, but I think this had the least to do or achieved less of honoring the comic than the
which is ironic, because the whole pitch for this movie, or rather the excuse that they made in order to make it, is that this is not a remake of the 1994 movie. This is a brand new adaptation of the original comic. We just blew it.
No, it isn't.
It's like, that's what I figured. Tom,
it's not even remotely fucking close.
No.
Right? That's the thing. Look, if you enjoy the film, that's fine. If anything, they would have been better off marketing it as a new sequel. I would have called it Crow Rehabilitation, because
there you go.
Yeah. Look, this movie has so many fucking problems. So many fucking problems. I will give it that if it was not The Crow, it was just its own thing, like a ghost love story, Junkies, a ghost love story or something like that, I wouldn't care. Nobody would have cared. People might have actually gone to see it a little bit just because of Skarsgård being in it, and what's her face is amazing. I can't even say her name. But it is a complete and utter fucking mess as far as comparing it to the original Crow. First of all, Culture's right. They spend the first 15, 20 minutes with Shelley.
Yep.
We don't even really get to meet Eric until 20 minutes in. And when we do meet him, we don't know shit about him other than a horse died when he was a kid. He's a little pussy. He's a junkie, and that's about it. That's all we really get to know about Eric before he dies. Because literally these guys meet in rehab. They break out, get fucked up, get killed. Okay, the original Crow, Shelley and Eric have been together for a while. But go ahead. You were going to say something, Paul.
I was just going to say, that sounds like the plot of the new Batman. Sorry, the Joker 2 movie.
It pretty much, yeah. Funnily enough, it's kind of a similar.
And if we're talking about Joker, we should also give Brandon and company credit for being the genesis of Heath Ledger's Joker.
Brandon Lee, sure.
Let's be completely honest. Let's be completely honest.
Well, and that is from the comic.
Yeah. Anyway,
and this feels a lot like they're trying to emulate the Jared Leto Joker because he's tattoos from head to toe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't even take on the crow form until the last 10, 15, 20 minutes of the movie.
Oh, really?
Something like that. Well, what he does is finally he finishes a tattoo that was part of her name or something. Then he takes the paint from the ink from the tattoo, puts it around his eyes and on his lips.
Yeah, and I mean it's the third act. Like you said, and it's a mess. First of all, I don't think anything happens until the third act. Really,
no.
I mean,
not really. The whole story's in the third act. I mean, I could kind of tell you all the story real quick. Basically, he shows up right after they die. He's told, I think, by that one angel what his mission is. He starts killing people. The worst part of this movie is the bad guy, which really sucks because I like Danny Houston as an actor. I love Danny Houston. Great fucking actor.
Misused.
But they got him playing like this. He's like this demon character guy who can whisper in your ear and make you do shit that you don't want to do, or, whatever, like kill somebody, kill yourself, whatever. So basically he's the main antagonist. And basically he learns that she had been whispered to at one point and has killed somebody or whatever. So then he loses faith in her. Right. So when he gets killed, he ends up getting stuck in purgatory because he loses faith in her. So it's all predicated around the chick. Yep. Right. And so and then I'm sitting here going, well, wait a minute. Cause he finally gets back and because he realizes, it wasn't her fault. Cause this guy whispered to her. It's like, so basically all the people you're killing, he whispered to. So shouldn't you not be killing all of them?
Yeah.
Like this movie has so many logic problems in it that the original film in its simplicity works so well on, right? Like it forgets how simple the original plot was and how it worked so well. It was basically two star-crossed lovers had something wrong happen to them. And as Sarah says in the intro of the film, just sometimes a crow brings back the soul from the other side to set things right. Right? Like that's it. That's the plot.
Right.
And they overcomplicated it with so much bullshit and nonsensical shit just to make her a bigger character. And like I said, I still can't tell you anything about Eric. There's nothing to tell you about him, but I can tell you plenty about the Brandon Lee version, right?
Yeah.
He's a musician. He loved Shelley more than anything else. He helped take care of Sari, so he's a good guy. He wasn't a junkie. I mean, I know I'm kind of down this for now, but that's because I'm a huge Crow fan. The original film is one of those movies that I hold up as a seminal 1990s film, right? Like,
yeah.
Why? Just like with RoboCop, Ghostbusters, why? Why? Well, I'll tell you why. I think this is one of the biggest fucking producer Ponzi schemes happening right in front of our face.
Yeah.
Because I tried to figure out, I'm like, okay, this has got to be because of a rights retainer. Oh no. When I was doing research, had nothing to do with the rights. You want to know why this movie happened? Because they sold it at Cannes 2 years ago and they got the money. That's why. And they pocketed most of it. I guarantee you that. And then now they knew it was going to flop.
Well, do you remember a couple of months ago when one of the earlier screenwriters back when Gutierrez was going to direct it, I think the guy's name was Cliff Dorfman, was coming out on social media. He was saying, don't waste your money. It's unwatchable. It's horrible. It's far worse than anything you didn't like in the original. I mean, this was 2 months ago. And this film, like you said, was announced in 2022. So I guess that 2 months wasn't enough to fix any of it. Although some people might like it. I don't know that I would like it anymore if it wasn't called The Crow. I just thought it was a completely dour.
I think all they did in that 2 months, Chris, was just cut it down more.
Yeah, probably.
Well, they tried to cut it within the same length absent the credits of the original film, because the original film was like an hour and 45 minutes or something.
That was a brisk hour and a half back
all
in
the character
1994.
development basically is on the cutting room floor.
If I mean, it could have just been a terrible script to begin with. I mean, sometimes you're cutting bad stuff, right?
Well, but sometimes you're cutting stuff that's needed for the audience, and I feel like in order to honor the original, we needed a little more flavor.
Well, we didn't need the whole first act being romance and having sex everywhere.
It was a telenovela was the first act. That's what I would call it. It's a telenovela.
Do you know how much we get to see Shelley in the original Crow?
Not very long.
What?
I think she only has like 3 lines.
Yeah, but
I mean, because it starts with them dying. So the only time we see her is when she's either walking as a ghost, or as just in the quick flashbacks.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah.
We understand their relationship, and we see how
it.
much they love each
You
other.
don't need to explore it. No.
Well, and at the end of the film, and I think Tom may have said this in his analysis or breakdown of the plot.
No, I didn't even tell him the end of the movie.
Oh, tell him the end, because I'm like, oh my.
Go for it if you want to.
No, it's on you. You've been able to be
okay.
More
So
eloquent.
the whole thing is predicated on he gets the idea in his head from, I believe, that one angel guy, or whatever you want to call him, that if he kills all the people that wronged them, Shelley gets to come back. But the catch is he's stuck in purgatory.
No,
so at the end of
I think he has to be stuck in purgatory for her not to be.
Yeah, basically that's how it works, something like that. And then so then she comes back to life at the exact moment they died.
The end.
The end. Which kind of defeats the purpose, because the whole purpose is at the end. Even in the comic, he says, I'm coming home, Shelley. I'll see you soon, as he's dying.
Yeah.
You know, because that's the whole point, is he finally gets to be reunited with her in the afterlife. Kind of defeats the whole purpose, doesn't it?
Yeah, he just sacrifices himself at the end. I guess they hoped it might have some Romeo and Juliet vibe. I don't know. FKA Twigs. How do you say her name?
That's what I'm saying.
That's
I don't
it.
know the hell to say her name. I don't care.
Okay.
And she
these
said
artist names are getting more and more impressive by the day.
Well, she was silly enough to actually throw down against Chrissy Mayer.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah. If I can find that tweet,
I missed
it still
that.
exists. Yeah.
That's with the redhead.
Yeah. I'm like, don't throw down with a comedian. You're gonna get wrecked.
And look, I don't have a problem with them being junkies.
Yeah, come after me. Come after me.
The problem is they should have had them like go through rehab, meet in rehab, and then jump like a year later where they've gotten their shit together. Right? Like that would make me care about them. People who have actually tried to do better and then have this horrible thing happen to them. You know what I mean? Like, you don't really give a shit about the characters. That's the problem. You're like, yeah, she's a fucking junkie. So what if he whispered in her ear? They're both worthless pieces of shit.
You're supposed to like them because they're attractive, Tom. That's all. They're easy on the eyes. So
I could smell them through the fucking screen, Chris.
Yeah, it was grimy.
That's what it reminded me of, Andre, was the Hellraiser remake.
Yeah, I was just about to say, because full disclosure, I haven't seen the new movie yet. I did the post-mortem because, again, it's a movie that was rejected unseen, so you can perfectly do the post-mortem of it anyway. But yeah, just to add to what you were saying there, what ruined the Hellraiser remake for me was the lead. I had nothing against the lead actress, Odessa Asian, perfectly fine actress, but she basically played a hobo, a disgusting, smelly, dirty, filthy hippie that I could practically smell through the screen, just like the dirty, the dirty hobo hobbits, the filthy hobbits in Rings of Power. Right? They were just so dirty and filthy that you can smell them through the screen. With their tattoos, like I'm worried my TV might have an STD. I mean, just from that person being on screen, right? And it's like the same thing here. Here is not just one dirty, filthy, disgusting, smelly hippie. There's two. And again, I haven't seen the movie, but just from the trailers, I could practically smell them through the computer.
So
how
can
are
I
you supposed to empathize with these characters?
Can I ask that you wouldn't have watched it using 4DX? Cinema?
No, this is not the movie I would see.
Oh God, that makes me almost puke thinking about it.
4DX presents the
Same thing with the Hellraiser remake. I mean, like, you have to like dull your sense of smell before seeing just the leads because they reek so bad.
God forbid you get pulled over by the cops on the way home. They think you were walking out of a drug den.
I feel sorry for the actors. I mean, you get hired. No. Well, I mean,
they took the money.
No, yeah, but that can affect your career.
Look, I'll let you finish your point, but look, at the end of the day, I give nobody who made this movie any fucking excuses, and this is why I believe it's a producer scheme. They knew it was going to flop from the start. In no world whatsoever
the actors didn't.
Anywhere.
The actors didn't.
Bullshit.
No. I
agree with Paul.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
You actors end up committing to a role and kind of blocking out the reality of the situation because it's the only way they could survive a shoot and the only way they could give it their best.
Yeah.
And at the very end, I have been with actors on terrible productions who are hoping that people see it and they believe it's good. They actually believe the thing that they've created or helped create is actually good. It's part of the game, and I don't blame them. I mean,
I believe you most of the time, but I cannot believe a sane person in this world would think
they're not sane.
Successful.
Actors are empty vessels. He was used to pour words into.
Movie. And he was used to sell this
sure.
movie.
Well, think about it, though. The Crow, when you saw the 1994 movie, at the end of it, you thought, man, that was cool. He was cool. The Crow was cool. You felt like there was some heart and soul to it. It had its cheesy moments, but this was dreadful, soulless, nothing cool about it. I mean, there is that scene in the opera house or whatever that's, violent and intense for about 15 minutes. But that's no reason to resurrect this dead IP.
I just want to say that it was sad that Baldwin killed Lee.
Oh, is that what happened? Okay, I didn't know that's.
What do you go back in time now?
That set also, I got it.
He's these are the things that you just don't realize. You don't, no one's.
He waited 30 years on the set of Rust to reenact.
It was him all the time.
His violent criminal act.
Yeah. Oops. Oops.
He got away with it as well.
I'm saying that in some cases, Paul, I agree with you that most actors are just there. They want to do a good job. They're not trying to make a bad movie. But I just can't believe anybody, and I mean anybody, thought this was going to do any good. I can't believe this wasn't a scheme from the start.
No, that's a different issue. But I mean,
I'm thinking Bill was part of that scheme.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Actors sometimes get hired. They arrive on the set and there's no script. And which we've talked about before, and you've seen that, and they're given sides. I mean, really, when you're shooting a movie, generally speaking, you're trying to get a minimum of 3 minutes of footage every day. People don't really realize that. So they don't have to memorize an entire script. They get what is called sides, and they're printed out, they're photocopied, and you're given these sides, and you're in your trailer. And people memorize these things differently. Some memorize it word for word. Literally, some people can only do it. Some actors, they have to read it once and kind of paraphrase it when they go out. If they go into the realm of trying to memorize it, that then represents weeks worth of work.
Well,
and there's actors who just look at it, they go out and do it. And then they forget it.
Let's not forget, very often it's the agents that make the decisions.
Oh, sure, maybe. But like at the end of the day, my point is this: the only actor that I think that was ever attached to this since Brandon Lee, who genuinely had the desire and wanted to make a good film, was Jason Momoa. And I think that's why he walked away, and the director did too, because they realized there was no doing this. It just was going to turn out bad, because we've had 3 sequels already in a TV show to show us that. And Andre made the point amazingly. He rewrote my original research and script, but he put it in there, and I give him full fucking credit for it because it did. And everybody was touched by it in the comments. He says that basically The Crow is a memorial to Brandon Lee. And to fuck with that is tantamount to basically just vandalizing somebody's grave.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to me, seeing The Crow You know how you have like certain celebrities that people from bygone ages, and then the real hardcore fans, they may actually go and seek out the graves of these bygone celebrities, put down a flower or something like that, right?
Yeah,
To me,
he's basically like the
just
Jim
seeing
Morrison of
crow.
the movies. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just seeing the crow is that. Seeing the crow is visiting the grave of Brandon Lee.
Yeah,
and I
what the
agree.
movie is.
It's about yeah, go ahead.
The whole movie is a tombstone to Brandon Lee. It's his legacy.
Well, which is an unfortunate situation because of the accident. And look, they never should have touched this property. I think Tom's right. You know, maybe smarter heads than mine will say that, it wasn't a cash grab for the producers, but I can't almost see it any other way. There was no effort put forward
It's
here.
almost blatant at this point. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, I don't think they put forward the effort required to do any form of remake in this. If you watch it, you have to watch it and then realize that was well, Chris. I mean, was it a good movie?
No, I mean, it was tedious. Yeah. It was dreadful.
Yeah.
No, and I agree with you.
But so was City of Angels, which came out 2 years after the original Crow, was dreadful. Salvation, which came out
all of them were
3 or 4 years later.
Were pure. Those were the real cash grabs.
Oh, that's what I mean.
Those were pure
the last one was Wicked Prayer from I think 20 years ago.
Yeah,
so
with Edward Furlong.
This was a missed opportunity. I mean, they could have made something kind of cool. Everybody likes Love, Death, Revenge. It's very primal. It could have been done well, but not as a beat for beat remake. But I think they could have done. Obviously, they could have done this better. If you liked it, good for you. Glad you enjoyed that mild roller coaster. I like better stuff than that.
There's only one way that this possibly could have worked, just like with Doctor Strange saying it in Avengers, and that is if you went and you just did the comic frame for frame. And you maybe got like Tom Hiddleston or somebody like that. Like you had to have done it so perfectly with so much respect and be like, look, we're not even going to try to attempt to do what they did in the original film. We're just going to adapt the comic. But you also have a problem in that, and this is what I said a few times and I stand by it. And I've been rereading the comic again and I still stand by it. That movie is one of the rare times where you have the movie did a better job with the source material than the original comic. And even James O'Barr himself has admitted that the comic is a bit undercooked, right? He went back and did a special edition where he filled in some gaps and did some other things too, because he did it in a way that was so disconnected from, how you normally do those kind of things. And it was his first comic ever.
Yeah.
Right. So he didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
And in the movie does a brilliant job of connecting all the characters, giving you a main bad guy, making the relationship with, Sarah and Shelley and Eric a little more than it just being a random her meeting him on the streets after he kills somebody or during murder somebody or whatever kind of thing. So like there's those kind of things and elements that they added to the film that I think that people associate so much more now with the story than they do, that I don't know if you could get away with even that. But that's about all I have to say about it. It's a piss poor rendition of what used to be a very beloved film, and it just doesn't deserve this kind of treatment.
They should have had Ernie Hudson show up in a brief cameo or something.
He was even probably smart enough to say no.
and again, the idea that Hollywood is bereft of original ideas is not a new thing.
No.
And these things, I mean, the idea that this movie was not gestating through several hands over the decades would be insane to suggest. Someone out there with very little talent got hold of this, and this became their raison d'etre to make money. I mean, it's just the nature of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because also think of it from the perspective of a really, really stupid Hollywood executive that doesn't understand the source material or anything like that. I'm just playing devil's advocate here for a second, but if you have a stupid Hollywood executive who is like thinking, okay, comic book movies, they make money. Everything with brands, they make money. Here's a comic book movie I can make for real cheap. The original is a classic. I remake this. Money! Because he doesn't understand anything else. I mean, that's why this thing has gone.
Well, again, executives
I want to thank Captain Nemo for this, by the way.
It's great. Hollywood executives are more comfortable with being pitched a failed IP than no IP at all.
Yeah. But of course, as a comic book movie fan, I'm like thinking, there are so many really cool comic books out there which have not yet been adapted. It would have been so much better if they could have devoted the resources that was spent on this on something else entirely. But again, if their point was we don't just want a comic book movie, we want one that's been done before for the brand value. And of course, then you're screwed either way.
Did anybody see the TV series? I think there wasn't there a Crow television.
Yeah, the television show, I guess, from my memory, was probably one of the more well-received things. It wasn't great. There was some things that I can recall from the series I wasn't a fan of. Like I know when he would transform into the crow, like literally, like his face, like the makeup would come out and stuff. Like
they cut the what was it, Skull Cowboy or whatever the character is in the Crow comics, sort of his spirit guide.
Yeah.
From the original movie. They didn't need that in the original movie. And yet, so they had the scenes.
They have the same character in this one, but he's a different, like he's just a guy.
I don't know.
Did you ever see the footage of the Skull Cowboy? You can see why it's cut.
Find those scenes?
Yeah, it's so stilted. It looks so bad. That's why they cut
Michael
it.
Berryman.
You can basically tell when it's a puppet, and you can tell when it's a guy in a costume. It's really bad. It's actually, those scenes are on the DVD and Blu-ray if you have it.
Okay, I'll check that out.
It's in the deleted scenes. But I also have a work print of the Crow.
We got a freaking Crow aficionado here. It's great.
There's actually 2 work prints out for the film.
There is 2, but the other one's pretty close to what the end film was.
Yeah.
The 2-hour one, though, has got more footage in it.
Yeah. Look, sometimes you can make a follow-up or a remake, and it's worthy of release. This is one of those where it wasn't, and nobody could convince me otherwise. A good
example is The Thing. You know, we do our Thing expanded trailer before the show. Well, The Thing was never associated with somebody like Brandon Lee, right? I mean, now people associate, Kurt Russell more with The Thing than anybody.
Yeah.
Even though it's a remake or a readaptation. I mean, The Fly, another great example. You take something and you run with it in a different way, in a different direction. But when you have something as iconic, I mean, look at this. I mean, this picture alone, I mean, it's just so iconic of Brandon Lee. I mean, and this was just taken from a picture of him on the set sitting in the chair.
Yeah.
This has been one of the more iconic images that have ever been seen.
Yeah, the broken window. I mean, man.
And I mean, anyway. He just the way he looks, that became a costume. I mean, it was even a joke on one South Park episode is like where they said no crow costumes or whatever.
Yeah.
All the guys kept showing up as dressed as the crow or whatever, but
the Edward Scissorhands look without the
scissors. And I think that was one of the jokes. Is one of the kids is like, "We told you no crow costumes." He's like, "I'm not the crow. I'm Edward Scissorhands or something."
I can I say one thing that the James Carpenter version of The Thing,
John Carpenter
destroyed my memory of James Arness.
That's right.
That's you knew where I was going.
I don't need to think of him. What was that carrot stuff on his head or whatever?
I just want to say it disrespected the memory of James Arness's Thing because he was the Thing. So come on, folks.
So
where's your anger? Where is all your internal retribution?
You had to go far for that joke, sir.
I felt that way until I heard that first opening bass line, and then I was hooked on the remake.
That's right. No, the remake was far better, but again,
you guys may not know this. I actually worked with John Carpenter for 3 days on a
film.
Really cool. Which one?
He's a legend.
Yeah, Starman.
I love Starman.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I think that's his most successful film financially, if I'm not mistaken.
It might be, but I don't think it did very well. That had Karen Allen in it, and Jeff
It's one of his studio pictures, but
Bridges was so good in that too. I mean,
he got nominated for that,
awards. I think.
Were you Lou Gossett Jr.'s stunt double?
No. You know the scene at the restaurant where he's eating apple pie and he's learning stuff?
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah,
he brings a deer to life. That's a hunter.
Yeah.
On the hood of the car.
The favorite
So
scene, yeah.
you've got to watch the whole movie to understand why he flips him off and all this stuff. But the hunter, they jump in the car to chase after them because he's so incensed that this guy just flipped him off and said, "Up yours." And they run into a bus. They smash into one of these tour buses. And about 24 people get out and start doing this and looking around at the wreck. And I'm right there in the middle. So, freeze frame.
I just watched it not long ago.
Yeah, I'll send you guys some stills.
How much did you get for your residuals on the 4K release?
About $8. Oh no, I was paid that day, and I got craft.
I'm kidding. You were an extra, probably.
That's right. Yeah.
Craft services is good on a set, though.
I was shocked at how good the craft services were.
Well, that was when Columbia was still owned by Coke, so there's probably Coca-Cola products all over.
There were bagels and lox. I mean, there's all kinds of food.
You can gain weight as an extra. I'm just saying.
You will. Yeah, you will. Sorry.
One food story online. We were working on I was working on a long shoot for a TV series, and the food was so fabulous and so good, catered by some of the best people in Toronto, that I think 3/4 of the way through, the crew mutinied and said, "Can we just get some fucking hamburgers and pizza?" I'm not joking. It was too rich and like.
Yeah, Coco Bond.
I gotta run to the shitter every 5 minutes. I can't be.
Well, the crew are very down to earth people. I mean, you know what I mean?
They're blue collar guys. Yeah, they're used to beer and pizza. Exactly. But before I go, and I know Culture's got to leave here soon too.
Yeah.
Jason Webster says the Crow remake is a complete turkey. Wow. Yeah. Like, I mean, this is gonna go down as one of the only saving grace, and you brought this up obviously in the video, Andre, is that this may be a bigger bomb than Borderlands, but they were way deeper in over their heads with Borderlands compared to this.
Yeah,
and that's where this is just a drop in the bucket, basically.
I feel like, look, this year we've seen some of the worst films I've seen in decades, all released the same year, and the box office is
almost like some of them were sitting on shelves for a while. Huh?
For 2 years, and then got reshoots, and then sat around some more. Yeah, that's Borderlands.
Movies that never would have been released.
I thought
Twister
was fine.
No, I'm talking about like, from Madam Web forward, it has been just garbage fest.
I'm just trying to say something.
Daniel sent in $2 and says Crow equals race swap movie. Says it all, zero interest. Well, that didn't even matter. Honestly, that was the least of the movie's problem.
It's true.
If anything, you should. I can't believe there's not more people making a big deal out of. Oh, so you make Shelley a junkie now and she's black?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, look, Hollywood is always trying to prevent themselves from leaning into stereotypes, and yet here they went and leaned into stereotypes.
That's probably the one thing I could say about the movie is like that's about the only woke thing in the movie necessarily, because like otherwise there's nothing really woke in the movie per se, other than the idea that junkies don't have a problem, because like that's the thing is when they get out of rehab they just go right back to doing drugs. Like people are after him and trying to kill him, so let's go do some drugs, honey, and fuck. Why not?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
and actually, Eric didn't have to get involved at all. If he had just stayed out of it, he'd have been fine.
You won't find more expertise on cocaine consumption than Hollywood.
That's true.
Right. If they've done more cocaine, it'd have made more sense, Paul. It was mostly, I think, crack and heroin and shit like that.
I don't. Yeah, like you said. But still, Borderlands probably is a worse film. Marginally worse.
It even shows them smoking crack.
Yeah, I'm trying to go through all the bad ones this year.
All of them except for Deadpool and Wolverine. That's it. Let's be real.
Okay, so here, the last part I wanted to bring up about the box office before we shuffle on is this. They made less than $100 million at the box office again for the third time this summer.
Yeah, you were bringing that up earlier.
Yeah, the theaters are dying. This could literally be, the moment where we see AMC have to do drastic things. I know that Regal's parent actually had some real problems the last couple of years. I'm worried that we're going to see the number of houses, movie theaters, locations. I think we're going to see those like drop 20% over the next 4 or 5 years, possibly. There's not a lot of good material being made. And production's down across the board, not only in television, but also in film. The strikes really are going to get the people who fought so hard for them less. They fought to get
ironic
less.
how that is. Yeah. So now they can all go celebrate Labor Day.
Yeah. I just want to address this real quick in the chat. Dark Hero Fan says not all ex-rehab patients go back to doing drugs. Now that's a stereotype. Well, yeah, they weren't even trying to be rehabbed though, Dark Hero Fan. That's the thing. Like, I don't even know why Eric's there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they never really give you a good reason why he's there. And then he's like, as soon as like these people show up to kill her, he's like, let's get out of here. And he's like, I'm rehabilitated. And then, like I said, then they just go right back to doing drugs. Like, it's like they were not, and she was there because I can't remember what the hell happened that she got busted for. I can't even remember now. Except it's like only been 3 days and the movie's already being pushed out of my brain.
I think
pushed out.
I think I shed everything but the things that I found to be the most off-putting.
Exactly. Yeah. I can't even remember how she wound up in rehab now. I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember. But yeah, so anyhow, STR Red Wolf says with $5, well, acting in The Crow was a dirty job. Somebody had to be paid to do it. I think that was aimed at Paul.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I look, Paul, I get what you're saying, but I refuse to believe that Bill Skarsgård is so stupid to think that he was going to be able to play Jared Leto as the Joker doing The Crow and it was going to be successful.
That I can't tell you about, but I mean, having been an actor, having done productions and spending a lot of time with actors, I just want to convey the experience that I've had to your audience just to give a wider view of
No, and 99% of the time I agree with you and believe you, but I could even believe that the girls going into Ghostbusters thought they were doing something good. I cannot believe that Bill Skarsgård thought that they were making a movie here that was going to be successful in any way, shape. I haven't even seen him out doing any kind of press for this.
Well, that's because he has tacitly. He's too professional to say anything against the movie. You know what I think? I think that this is something that his agent
actually
thought up, and that he probably realized too late this is going to be bad. But then contracts were already signed. But he apparently expressed some level of doubt when quizzed about the sequel, as if he didn't really want.
I was going to say it may have come from the same interview I think Six sent me, or I found one in my research, one of the two, where the only thing I could see him saying about this movie is he didn't like the ending. He was upset that they changed the ending.
The third act is the only act worth watching.
Well, and I could see why, because probably the ending was them actually getting to be back together, because that's what only makes sense. Like, that's why you're watching the movie and you're at the end, you're going, well, that's kind of a shitty way to treat a character, because normally when they say that in a movie, it's like, well, you can only do this if this. Well, then they go beyond that to try and find a way to make it work, right? Yeah. Well, that's what The Crow probably would have done, is found a way to make it to where those two could be back together again. I mean, him just nonchalantly going, yes, I want to make sure she gets to come back to life and I'll sacrifice sitting in purgatory for it. That's the ending, so that's what I'm sure he's talking about. What else could he be talking about?
Well, the comics went for what, 30 years? I don't see why you've got.
Well, it wasn't always Eric either. That's what I was saying. Eric got to go home. There's been other Crows.
Oh, that's right.
And that's another thing too I didn't understand, is you could have went a completely different direction with this. Now there's the female Crow, which is one of the more famous ones. That's not the one I would have done now, because unfortunately of the time. But there's the cowboy. There's other ones you could have done. Like a Western Crow would have like really showed the audience, yes, we're doing something in the Crow universe, but it's not going to be Eric Draven. Right. And I think the audience may have been just a little bit more accepting of that. Maybe.
But we do have to move on.
We have to move on. I got to get rolling. Culture's got to get rolling.
Culture has to get rolling. And Chris only has a limited time left as well. So thank you guys for the box office analysis and for the Crow review. And everyone do check out Culture Casino's channels, both of which are linked to in the description. And Action Tom says for $5, Roger Ebert singled out the grungy city landscape as being unique to the Crow. Was the Crow the first to do it?
Well, here's the thing. Yes and no ish. Like the same director went on to do Dark City and some other stuff too, but the Crow. See you, Clutch. Yeah, the Crow was a unique film, especially. It's funny. There's a movie we forgot to mention in our documentary yesterday, Andre, or today, I mean. Dick Tracy. The Crow and Dick Tracy have more in common than probably any film. Batman, Dick Tracy, and the Crow are very much in the same family. Why? Because 90% of what you're seeing on screen is either a set or a matte painting. There's hardly any of those films that are shot in actual locations. So the whole entire world has been created from whole cloth. So you feel like it's a real place, even though you can never see it and never touch it. It feels like its own world. I think that's what Ebert was getting at is, and even Ninja Turtles kind of falls into this a little bit, even though that has a lot more realistic locations and was shot in real locations, but that just because of the tone and the way it was shot. But yeah, anyway, that's pretty much it. With that, let's keep moving on because you had a story with Chris, and I'm gonna.
Yes, that is indeed correct. So moving on from the Crow and to Disney, because they had a lawsuit that they were threatened with, and Bleeding Fool did a great story on that. So let's bring that up on screen. Namely,
with the help
Disney withdraws bid to dismiss allergy death suit using Disney Plus terms of service. Now, most of you, of course, have heard the gist of the story, which is basically that a married couple went to a Disney resort where the wife and the couple asked in one of the restaurants, is there leftovers of peanuts in this menu or in this food? And she was assured several times that no, it's fine, which was really important because she was really, really allergic to nuts. The people were not correct, let's put it that way. There were very high concentrations of nuts in the food. So she had an allergic reaction, which was so severe that she died on the spot. Even if you had the antihistamine shot with her, it wasn't enough to save her. And then later, the husband wanted to sue, but Disney argued that, no, you cannot sue because you both signed up for Disney Plus. And it's part of the terms and services there that if you agree to this, even if it's just a free trial, you can never, ever sue Disney for anything. You have to mediate. But there's been a development here. Now, Chris, can you tell us what's this story about and what's the most recent development?
Well, so you're absolutely right about everything you said, Andre. I think that the backlash finally got the better of Disney's legal team. There was a massive backlash about this. I'm hearing some music. Did my jazz music start up all of a sudden?
Not me.
I think probably it's like a browser or something in your.
It is. Yes, it is.
Jazz music here.
Sorry, it threw me off for a minute. I think the intense backlash, because, you know, this was reported a couple of weeks ago that Disney was trying to use the terms of service of Disney Plus. He signed up for a free trial. And in that free trial, everyone, the millions of people who have signed up for that free trial have agreed that if there's any sort of dispute with Disney, you have to go to arbitration. You can't go to a jury trial. So Disney was trying to dismiss the case over that, so, you know, that they would go into arbitration, but they would not go to trial. You couldn't sue them. And I think once the news got out, this woman, or his name is Piccolo. Let me see what I've got here. And her name, she's a doctor, a 42-year-old medical doctor from NYU. Kanakporn Tagswan is her name, so they don't share the last names, Jeffrey Piccolo. So when he went to sue because she died, Disney tried to shut it down, and I think his attorney got the word out there about what Disney was up to, because it's sort of bizarre to think that just because you sign up for a free trial of Disney Plus, that any and all disputes in the future that you might have with Disney are null and void because you signed up for this free trial. And they had booked, it's at a restaurant, it's an Irish pub called Raglan Road, which is a vendor at Disney World, they lease this space to the restaurants. And now I think Disney has thought better of their decision and decided, okay, we'll drop our pushback on, wanting to go to trial, but they're trying to get themselves removed from the lawsuit and just let the couple sue the owners of Raglan Road, that restaurant. They don't want to take any responsibility for what the restaurant did. The restaurant, by the way, when they were booking their Disney trip, and you also sign up for this arbitration rule with Disney when you buy tickets for Disney through their app or anything like that. I mean, all this little fine print that we're agreeing to when we sign up. I think that's really the story here. I'm hoping that our legal justice system will make a mockery of those sort of things being in the terms of service. But
I think you're onto something there. I have a slightly different take on it, but before I give my take on why Disney withdrew their bid to dismiss the lawsuit and allow them to proceed with it, Paul, why do you think that Disney just guess as a layman? None of us are lawyers here, but what would be your layman's guess? Because Disney, they've released a statement where they even said, we forfeit our right to basically block the lawsuit. It was something along those lines.
Yeah.
In this particular instance. Why do you think that Disney had the good grace of heart to allow someone to sue them over this particular thing? Why do you think that would be?
Well, bad publicity. This is a tragedy that probably could have been avoided. This is, there's many cases where possibly the complainant shouldn't win. We could talk about the McDonald's hot coffee thing, which sounded kind of bizarre at the time. Again, I am no lawyer, although I have played one on TV. That does not make me an expert. And in this particular case, I think it was just piling up as a lot of bad press. And you got to, at some point, figure that that's going to be more important to deal with than fighting for whatever legal scraps are remaining, which nobody ever likes to hear about. No one wants to hear that you got off on a technicality. That doesn't feel like.
I think there's a little bit more to it.
And, probably.
I'm sure there's more, but there's at least two in the chat that thinks the same as me. And the two I saw, and kudos to everyone else who thought the same, but Vorpal, Bunny's Revenge, said, if I had an arbitration clause in a contract I wrote, or my attorney did, I'd be very nervous right now. The situation is ripe to tear the teeth out of those clauses.
Yes, that's what I'm
hoping. Rayhard says the same thing, wanted to avoid a precedent ruling.
Yeah.
Now, that's what I think as well. I think that the reason that Disney withdrew or forfeited their right that they gave themselves, because if it actually had gone to court, then I think, again, I'm not the lawyer, but based on what little I do know of the American law system, chances are very good that the judge would have said, are you insane? This is not legal. You have no right for this. You need to get rid of this right away. That's the ruling, and there the precedent is set. That would mean that not only would Disney have to get rid of that from their clause, so would everyone else. And the way that it works right now, Disney probably know that what they have put in here, if you decide to even if you just have like a free preview of Disney Plus, you can now never ever sue us under any circumstance ever. They know that there is absolutely no legal basis here, but as long as they can put it in there, they can use that as a bludgeon to threaten anyone that wants to sue them for any reason. And if they have an argument with that, well, then they have to sue. And for most people, they don't have the money to do that.
Right.
It's an expensive process. So there you just have the threat. There's nothing behind it. But most people that would have some kind of dispute with Disney, they do not have the resources to challenge that. If this thing right here were to go to court, they would forever lose that threat that they have against normal people, which is why they forfeit the right, because that way no judge is going to say, oh, you can't have that in there. Then they can still have that there, even though it's legal bullshit with 99% certainty. So no, they are not kind for doing this. This is not them having any showing any goodness of their heart. This is ultimately self-serving.
Yes.
They know that this lawsuit is going to go through anyway, but by forfeiting their so-called right, they know that this right that they have given themselves is not going to get utterly torn apart in the court of law. I think
you may be onto something, Andre, and it makes a lot of sense, because the fact that that clause is in there, they're going to throw that out to anyone who seeks to sue them that maybe doesn't have the money to fight it, just in the hopes that it will make the lawsuit go away.
Exactly. And if this lawsuit were to go away, that whole clause is going to go away. I can almost guarantee it.
And I'm thinking, you know, also the restaurant itself had a, on their menu, which is still online, you can go see this. It says, we cannot guarantee that every dish we prepare will be completely free of gluten and allergens. So now they say that, even though they give assurances, the waiter takes notes and all that kind of stuff, but it must have been severe oversight, because she even used an EpiPen that day and was taken to the hospital and died from the shock to her system of peanut.
Because the concentration of the allergen was so high that the pen couldn't overcome it. They didn't have high enough concentration with them.
I think it, you know, to Paul's point, it is. I do think, though, it's the public outcry that made Disney quickly want to get this off, because, you know, Disney last year they did $89 billion in revenue globally. And I think this guy was asking for something like, well, I don't have an exact number because all the reporting has been excess of $50,000 according to Florida, some law in Florida. So I'm thinking surely he's asking for more than 50,000, but that's the only number I can find. So they're saying in excess of 50,000, but I don't know what the price would be if my spouse died of a food allergy, even though we had been repeatedly assured that it was going to be free of any allergy at Disney. And then for Disney to try to pull this stunt, I don't know how much I would ask for.
Well, I think that a jury is probably going to add 3 zeros to that.
Yeah, probably so. And Disney can, while they can afford it, I'm sure they don't want people to suddenly think they can sue over getting sick.
And for those not so strong in math, you add 3 zeros to 50,000, you're up to 5 million.
Yeah.
So,
I think part of it, too, and I think you guys touched on it, is that lawyers will throw in a crap ton of clauses that are not specifically relevant, just to cover every single possibility.
Yeah.
And that's a problem when you're in front of a judge and says, well, why do you have this clause in here that says if a car crashes through your 3rd floor hotel room, what's that got to do with anything? They get mad.
Yeah, well, that's why lawyers are the worst. And I've seen that, like in family court and stuff like that, how basically lawyers, they will write you a document that looks fine.
Yes.
But it has absolutely no legal value whatsoever. So that's something that they do. Something that is worth something, though, is that we have another guest joining us.
Woohoo!
WDW Pro. Welcome, my friend.
Guys, I am sorry to report that Disney may actually destroy your homes, your lives, anything that they wish to have, because Paul Chato, once upon a time, had the Disney Channel. I believe it was in 1993 for approximately 17 days. So
correct.
You're done for.
I'm done.
Got to read the terms of service, Paul. You idiot.
Sorry.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing?
I'm sorry about.
Good to see you, WDW Pro.
Just as a pro is leaving, we unfortunately have to lose Chris Brawley.
Yep. Yeah, I got to go. This is a sad story. I hope that the guy gets justice. I hope that Disney also isn't able to weasel out of, having to share some responsibility by trying to blame it all on this restaurant, because Disney ultimately is in control of the rules about guest safety at the park. So hopefully this guy will get some justice. I'm sorry for his loss. And, also hopefully, and this is just sort of the dark side of the way my mind works, hopefully he didn't spike her food. Maybe they were unhappy and he intentionally spiked.
Oh my God.
Let's sue Disney.
I don't know that I would necessarily go there, but
suspect everyone, right?
Wow. Well, then he got a willing accomplice at that Disney restaurant. So
yeah, maybe. Who knows? Guys, it's been fun. Sorry I got to dust off, but I do need to go. Thanks for the invitation. It's always enjoyable to be with you guys. So thanks, Paul, Andre, WDW Pro. You can take the comm from here. And
Chris, I promise to wear deodorant next time. I apologize that you had to flee.
Have a great Labor Day, everybody, if I don't see you before then. Take care.
You as well.
Take care. Thanks for joining us. So yeah, it's good to have you here.
I'm only sorry that we've left Paul with the sole responsibility of being on camera. Paul, you're gonna have to look especially good today.
There's some statistic that shows that the more people who are live on camera on these streams, the more people watch them.
Yeah, I'll be joining you as soon as I get the webcam.
Yeah.
Here. So, yeah.
Well, I'm going to be hiring 12 people to just sit on camera and blink. Get ready, folks. The pro show is going to be even better.
you can do what Larry David did when he wanted to on Curb Your Enthusiasm, when he wanted to get through the horrible traffic and only the HOV lanes were available, and a hooker approached him and said, "Hey, are you interested in a date?" And he went, "No, but hold on, I have an idea. Get in." So he paid her to be the second person so he could be in the HOV lane and get past the traffic, which I think.
And he said, "I'll see you tomorrow."
Yeah,
easiest job you're going to work.
One of the funniest gags that I can possibly recall. So that's what I'm here for. I'm your prostitute.
Well, glad to hear it. And someone else who's here, of course, is WDW Pro, that park place. And of course, you've been killing it when it comes to Disney. You recently published this story right here. Disney World's cast members store overflowing with unsold Wish and LGBTQ pride merchandise. Fans reject woke Disney through films and theme parks. And I think that's kind of like the recurring theme that's going on with Disney right now. That's like the underlying thing in all of the other disasters. But Pro, which other of Disney's recent disasters, including and up to Succession, stands out to you this week?
Well, this article you have here, that was a fun one. I actually had a part in coordinating this. Marvin was the investigator here that we got connected with a cast member, and I used connection there in a bit of a double entendre because we sent Marvin to the Cast Connection store for cast members at Disney, and that is how he was able to go undercover and uncover what is going on with Disney far over ordering what they need for some of these agenda-driven months and celebrations. So, different people out there in the audience might have different opinions about Pride Month or about the various socio issues of the day. One thing, though, that doesn't have to be divisive is that Disney appears to be subsidizing this sort of agenda, subsidizing their DEI effort, because they're clearly, almost assuredly, knowingly over-purchasing these items, and then they flood their stores with them knowing that they're not going to sell. There's simply no other way. Oh, yeah, because so once these things don't sell, they don't put them in Ollie's. They don't send them to Five Below or the dollar store, whatever. They go to a place called Cast Connections, which is where cast members can buy these outdated items at a huge discount. So that's what we arranged to have happen. Now, in terms of what is going on for disasters with Disney as of late that registered larger than this, well, of course, we could talk about the Acolyte merchandise situation, which is of a similar variety.
Let's get into it. What's going on there?
Well, one of the fascinating things, this is out of Breitbart. John Nolte is the author there, and I know Breitbart is to the right, but this particular issue is not necessarily right or left. It's just simply this. Whatever the motivations of Disney might be, and Paul, I'd love your thought on it. Whatever the agenda behind what Disney's doing, The pragmatic effect, according to John Nolte, is that if you cut out the merchandise from the Disney store and all you leave up are T-shirts that seem to have none of the iconography that would initiate residual payments, Disney seems to be limiting the amount of money that goes to the actors who may have had residual contracts based on merchandise sales. So their likenesses, without
true.
those. So this is actually hurting the actors, and I don't think that the wokesters out there, I don't think those defending the Acolyte have caught on to this yet. They're mad because season 2 is canceled. They're mad because the merchandise is gone. They haven't yet figured out that poor Amandla is going to be living in squalor and poverty because her action figures are gone.
Yeah.
Did she ever have any?
There were, I think 4 or 5
different
action
versions,
figures.
or 4 and 5 made in total?
Well, so this is a funny one, Andre, and this is part of that Breitbart article. It says that apparently Hasbro had something like 50 total orders on Amazon for Acolyte action figures. So the demand was huge. It's almost as many as the hundreds, I tell you, of petitioners trying to get season 2 brought back.
Well, let's see how that petition is doing right now, because and people shouldn't be disappointed that it's more than a few hundreds that have signed it. As I said in our video covering it last week, in order for that petition to mean anything, it needed to have 100,000 signatures by the end of the week, meaning yesterday, and it needed to have 1 million by the end of the month. If it can't do that, it shouldn't mean anything.
Next, you're going to tell me that Rolling Stone isn't true journalism. You're opening my eyes.
Wow, yeah. Well, there was a point in time when Forbes has a new story out. Paul, have you seen this yet? I'll put the story up.
Are we bringing up new Scotty 2.0?
Yeah, we're bringing up Scotty 2.0 because I just saw it. Whoa, this is a real
Andre, just when you started to miss Mendelsohn, Paul Tassi stepped up to the plate and said, I'll cross that threshold.
Yeah. So basically, this is the latest hit from Paul Tassi, meaning the insane of the in
this
Forbes.
Is great.
And what he's saying here is, renew the Acolyte petition crosses 40,000 signatures. Will it help? And remember, I just said this thing needed to cross 100,000 by the end of the week. And so basically it's 60,000 short from when it needed to do that. And 1 million by, the end of this week. That's just not going to happen unless they use a significant amount of bots. And
so Andre, as of just a few days ago, this was at 700, I believe. Isn't it funny? And I'm not questioning the legitimacy of these, but isn't it funny that they always, when there are negative reviews, it's always Russians. The Russians are trying to review bomb Star Wars again. But whenever it's positive for them, they never question if the hordes of individuals wanting the Acolyte season 2 are real. I'm not here to make that claim. I just find it fascinating how they play the game.
Yeah, indeed. Let's go to that. But before we revisit this article, let's go to the petition, because there is something that's interesting about it. As you can see here, it has now reached 45,000 signatures, which may sound like a lot, but it really, really isn't. This is bad. And this is what I wanted to highlight. Here you have the top supporter voices of the fans putting out videos of themselves. And we already covered these first 2 paragons of masculinity in our video. And since you had a few more people come in and chime in.
This is like shooting fish in a barrel. This is not even fair. This
unbelievably
such easy content.
Undiverse collection of people. Like, where's the black women calling for to be seen here?
Does this start with Portland? Is that where this is out of? Like, do all the first videos just come from one region? I can't figure out why they're all so pale and yet so blushed with red somehow.
Well, listen, let's see if you can hear the argumentation from again this paragon of masculinity right here.
Renew the Acolyte. Save the Acolyte. We want a second season. Don't let the haters win. Continue the story. Give us the satisfying conclusion we need.
Wow, that was compelling argumentation right there. I trust that you heard it. It went the audio come through. Yeah, okay, yeah. Great.
Well, I mean, it came through to what it could.
So so that's the petition, and this is the petition that Mr. Tassi is suggesting may change Disney's mind. Before we get into that, we are also joined by the good script doctor. Been a while. Hey, my friend, welcome.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I've been fielding job offers, so I just finished off one, and I'm happy to be here because
good reason to be late.
What's fantastic is that it looks like a lot of people working on the Acolyte are going to be job hunting too.
Oh, well, don't worry. They won't be competition. They come with a stink.
That's true. Yeah. So, I mean, I will say this. The fact that the petition has been up for, like 72 hours and they haven't even broken that 50,000 is actually quite reinforcing.
It's been up much more than that.
Oh, it's been up more than 72?
Oh, yeah. Hell, yeah. It's been up since like Thursday or something.
Well, then basically that goes to whoever made the decision at Disney not to renew it made the right call, because you clearly didn't get the upscale you needed to in order to justify retaining the show.
Indeed, that's kind of like what I'm thinking as well. But as we were saying, let's revisit Paul Tassi before we hear what everyone has to say here, because Paul Tassi, he as we started before here. In this story, renewed the Acolyte petition across his 40,000 signatures. Will it help? And what he is saying is, unfortunately, I have seen a lot of these petitions in my time, and they rarely work. A goal is often to get the company to comment on the petition at a certain point, and I cannot see Disney doing that, at least not in this format. They have said effectively nothing about the cancellation of the show, no explanation, no thanking the cast and crew, none of that. But as I've said before, in this case being Paul Tassi, I don't think it's wholly impossible for Disney to reverse course. Their silence could actually be evidence of that consideration. The petition could be one factor, but I'd recommend the thing fans can do to help is watch the show. Well, rewatch it. A lot. I have to see mountains move through interest campaigns, the most prominent of which was fans planting the cancelled manifest at the top of Netflix top 10 list for weeks until, yes, it was eventually renewed and got a conclusion. Though the Acolyte would need a critical mass of fans to make this work, and I'm not sure they can get there. They can try, though. That seemed a little bit despondent, didn't it, Pro? What say you? That seemed very honest from Tassi there.
What say I? I think I need to pinch myself. I agree with Paul Tassi. Something's going on. The simulation has glitched. No, this is exactly right. If they want to bring back the Acolyte, do it the Family Guy way, right? Give it some support. Do it the Austin Powers way, where the film was not a success at the box office, but the VHS and DVD rentals gave it a sequel. You want to bring back the Acolyte? Start watching it right now. You know why they won't do that? Because they don't like it either. They just like the propaganda. They're not going to sit through it because they didn't want to have to sit through it the same way that we did when we reviewed it. It was nauseating. It was a root canal. It was terrible. There's nothing redeemable about the show. It is the worst piece of Star Wars content since the holiday special. And that might actually be an understatement, because the holiday special probably is better in its own strange way. They don't want to watch it, and they don't want to recommend it to their family nor friends, because then they won't have said family nor friends. And judging on the social ineptitude of some of them, they probably should not discount the few they have.
Do not watch the holiday special.
There are parts of it that are.
The Boba Fett cartoon is actually the best part of it.
Oh yeah, the cartoon, yeah. But,
okay, now do that with the Acolyte. What's something in the Acolyte that's like, oh, it's actually pretty good?
Well, it has a better premise than Ahsoka.
A premise is not content, Script. You know that.
No, a premise is content. The premise is exactly what content is.
It's the setup. It's the setup that starts you off. The execution, however, lacking.
What drives the story, and the fact is that they had a mystery and they actually had a resolution to the mystery, whereas Ahsoka was a convoluted mess of just trying to get Thrawn back to the galaxy, and the only reason that they made him leave is because they did that in another show. So it was very codependent on something else in order to be there. I will say this though, the guy that played Saul was definitely a better actor than anything we saw in more recent Star Wars shows, like some of the weird cartoon stuff that they did, the Star Wars Resistance, and also with the very wooden performances that were done on Ahsoka with many of the characters. Because Saul at least committed. His role was horribly written, but at least he committed and he actually put an effort in there, where some of the other actors, you could tell they just were not registering what they were doing.
I feel sorry for Lee Jung-jae because the man learned English to do this part. I mean, it's unlikely he understood culturally what he was stepping into.
No, he learned everything phonetically.
Yeah.
I doubt if he learned English.
I'm not sure which one is more impressive.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time. I do believe that that there are a number of actors that have done that for prior roles as well. But yeah, cool for him. And if he learned English, I'm sure that's going to benefit him later on, get him more English language roles either way. So I don't necessarily feel bad for him per se for that.
Yeah, I agree with Script Doctor that from the perspective of just a series of vignettes where there might be something to derive from the vignette itself and not how it might connect to the entire story, Acolyte is far better isn't the right word, but it
achieves the goal a lot more competently
than the Ahsoka. Ahsoka was dreadful in every way. Like it's funny. You could probably have a comparison between the two shows and find out how they were dreadful differently.
Right.
But Ahsoka was utterly irredeemable. Whereas if you just, let's say, knew nothing about Star Wars and you watch the witches singing episode, you'd go, "Oh, shit is happening." It doesn't connect anything properly, but and then it kind of shits its own pants at the very end when it turns out that the Jedi, weren't actually bad, and Saul actually was trying to save May from her mother. That's a different story. That's pants shitting. Mm-hmm. But if you just watch that thing, you go, "Oh, look at people dressed up. Stuff is happening. There's a little bit of fighting."
It's about something else that's not predicated on talking about how great Star Wars is, like
correct
Obi-Wan. That's kind of refreshing. But the thing is, it's not to excuse the fact that it was horribly mishandled.
No, I'm not making excuses for it.
Neither am I.
Yeah, and I'm just saying I agree with you that if I had to die on some hill, I would die on the Acolyte hill over the Ahsoka hill.
I think it's like comparing two adults at Walmart who have defecated themselves and trying to decide which one was worse.
I agree, but we are critics and we are willing to go out on a limb, and I'm willing to join Script Doctor.
And there's definitely more defecation on the Ahsoka side than on the Acolyte. Because here's the other part too. There's already rumors coming around that the Acolyte could face the same fate as Willow, which means that it'd be decanonized, which would then already give it a point above Ahsoka.
Yeah, we have actually raised that point here several times that that may be next. And before we leave the Acolyte behind, gentlemen, with all your industry experience, what do you reckon the chances are that the Acolyte actually may be willowed? And I love that this word is now getting more parlance, and I will credit Chato for that.
I think it's possible. Yeah, I mean, considering how fast they've taken everything off of store shelves and things, it's quite shocking. I think they're taking a page out of Zaslav's playbook.
Yeah, they did that already with Willow again. So yeah, I mean, I suggested the word Zaslav, but Willow is actually so much better. And what I found interesting is that the other high-profile series that Disney did this to, they've done it to a couple of others as well, to be fair. But the high-profile one was another Kathleen Kennedy production. So Could this be the next one?
So I think that it could be. I don't think that it will be this year, though. Likely, if they were to do it, it would be next year. They do not want to do anything that could create bad, bad PR around Star Wars Outlaws. They don't want to do anything that could create bad PR around Skeleton Crew, although I think they've already decided that that's.
I think it's too late for that.
Yeah. So, but Star Wars Outlaws, that's a third party that they've got doing this.
That's what I wanted to talk about next. That's a great transition right there.
Mick Jagger in female form. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because today, a bunch of reviews from influencers who probably signed agreements, the ones that Star Wars Theory didn't sign, where they get to try the game and they have to give positive reviews. Full disclaimer, I have not received that offer from Star Wars Outlaws, but I have received offers to review other games and stuff like that with a tacit expectation that it would be a positive review, which I have declined. You will,
Andre, before we go forward, though, there are a lot of people out there who are ready to fight you over this. Your country, the beautiful land of Norway, apparently birthed out the Dustborn game. Have you seen or heard about this Dustborn game? We Are the Dustborn.
I have not. All I will say is a lot of shit has come out of Norway, and I will not be held responsible for it.
I'll send you the link. Let's just say that they're giving Star Wars Outlaws a run for their money this week.
I'm not surprised. There's a bunch of SJWs in my land, so don't expect everything to come from there to be fantastic. I'm not defending it just because it's Norwegian. Hell, I moved away from that place for a reason. So. Yeah. Well, I have to check out this. Well, actually, I'm not going to check out this Dustborn thing, but I'm guessing it's something woke as hell. Is that Tassie writing about that too?
It's Matt Gardner, I believe, but Dustborn is a game that was born out of the European Union giving money to some developer in Norway to make essentially what is anti-American conservative propaganda.
Oh, of course. That would be a requirement to get that EU. Then I know exactly what this. Then I can tell you, I know a little bit about the Norwegian gaming community, having dabbled in it myself. So this review from Forbes that says, Dustborn review, a political adventure rewarding patient open minds. Yeah, of course, here you have all of the DEI things. Yeah, this would be a requirement to get that EU funding. Here's like the thing. The Norwegian gaming scene is really, really fucked up because the problem with the Norwegian gaming scene is that you have a few national bodies that reward certain games and give funding, because there are so few companies that are self-sufficient and that don't need that funding. It's pretty much Funcom and a handful of others. Now, every other wannabe Norwegian gaming studio, they need to apply to government grants. And here's the problem with the government funding situation. They are not aimed at making the company self-sufficient. They support each individual game on a project-to-project basis, and they don't support the project in one go. You have to apply several times a year to keep that funding going. And then they have all of these kind of requirements to make sure that you have the right kind of messaging, because they want a certain kind of games, which is why you have a bunch of major studios coming out from Sweden and from Denmark, because there the focus is on getting the actual game studio to work, but you don't have that from Norway. Because we have this messed up system that's actually fairly similar to the Canadian movie funding system. Recalling that clip, Paul, that you dared me that was not going to get 12,000 views. It did. Haha.
It did. It did. I was amazed.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's the situation there. So the Norwegian gaming scene is there's some really cool stuff, but it's being crippled by the funding situation, and Dustborn would be an example of that. Actually, that's something I can do research on and actually do a video about, because I know a little bit something about the Norwegian gaming scene.
I think you'll do exceedingly well with videos on Dustborn, because it is so ridiculously bad.
Oh, I know Dustborn. That's supposed to be the multiplayer. Yes, I know. It's the shooter. It's yes.
Yeah, but it also implements systems from Rock Band or from Guitar Hero, except with your controller, and the lyrics. The lyrics are just gloriously terrible. It's like AI was told to write as a 5-year-old.
I have to see if there's someone
thing,
I know who's behind the game. Again, I have a little bit of background from the Norwegian games. I might actually know some of the people behind it, depending on who they are.
But the fascinating thing is that Dustborn is out, and Star Wars Outlaws has something now to look forward to, because at least they can beat Dustborn. But I think we're going to have a similar kind of absolute collapse for a launch, just with different funding sources. Of course, Star Wars Outlaws largely funded privately, and Dustborn funded by large governments.
I've seen some gameplay from the Star Wars Outlaws, and I'm predicting it's not going to be as bad as everybody is claiming it's going to be, as claimed it's to be.
Well, I'm looking forward to finding out. It releases what, Thursday night, Friday night?
Yeah, you have the reviews are already out. You have a number of playthroughs, and plus they have already released a bunch, or actually all of the cutscenes, which is something I have to say surprised me. And if you can get over the fact that it's obviously a gender-bent, smelly drug addict Harrison Ford look-alike, then it doesn't seem all that bad, if I'm completely honest with what I've seen so far.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. If you can accept the lead character, it's kind of an open world version of Uncharted with some good parts and some bad parts. It's more acceptable than I think a lot of haters out there want it to be.
Okay, so here's the question then. So is it then a victim of the ecosystem that expects Star Wars to suck, or is it a victim of its own marketing team that put this out in a negative light right off the get-go? Like which way would the blame go if it turns out it's actually a good game?
I think it's a little bit of both. First of all, that the negative hype, that's entirely of their own making. Because here's like the thing, you just look at what they did to the lead character. Because if we're completely honest, most of the negative hype is about the lead character and the ugliness, rather, of the lead character. And that is completely something that they have done of their own making. It's very obviously a gender-bent Han Solo. And you saw the difference between the model and the finished character, right? And when they do this in an atmosphere where all women in gaming almost are given the trans treatment, and that's just going to make people all the more pissed about this. Now, if it weren't for that, if this is something that was done in isolation, if all other games were as they were like 5-10 years ago, and it's just this one, and it was everything else being equal, I don't think there would have been any controversy at all. But it's because this game follows the pattern of so many other games, and it is a pattern that gamers have rejected wholeheartedly. And that is what's going to give this particular game a lot of instant negative backlash, just because you see, oh, it's one of those. That is entirely down on the studio and the marketing. That's their own creative choices coming back to haunt them. And then maybe the finished game ain't all that bad, but still, you have no one to blame but yourself for that negative initial reaction. And then it's up to the game itself if they actually did deliver a decent game there. And again, I have never tried it. I never will. But from what I've seen so far, it doesn't seem terrible from the limited things I have seen from the gameplay or the cutscenes. But again, that can be misleading because I haven't tried it. I have to listen to the reviews of someone that didn't accept influencer contracts. Then we'll hear what they have to say. And I hope for those that did accept the influencer contracts and have reviews out already, that the reviews that will come later on is going to be in line with what they're saying right now. Otherwise, that's going to be a slight blow to their credibility. Kind of like those that really praised the Rings of Power. They really should have hoped that more people would feel the same, which they didn't in the end.
Well, the good news is that it will be under the same market forces as the Acolyte. Not exactly the same because, of course, these are two different mediums, but not totally dissimilar. So we've got the beta masculinity of the lead female character. That is something that the gaming industry and Hollywood seem to be obsessed with right now. I think Chris Gore has called it hot phobic, and we'll find out.
Too. Yeah, heterophobic.
Yes. How does the market respond to that? If it's great gameplay, does the market look over that, or does it not? Does society embrace this or no? And it will be judged in the same way as the Acolyte in terms of how many concurrent players does it have, how many people are enjoying the game, what kind of resonance does it have in conversations with the people who are apt to share it with their friends. And we'll see. That's the great news about the free market. Let's let it have at it. And all the shills and all the influencers, they give it a little bump in the beginning, maybe, although people are becoming savvy to what it is they're up to. But after that, this thing has to live or die on its own. And I can tell you that Gameplace, the YouTube channel, will be streaming this and reviewing it when it comes out. And, we'll see. But I think the influencers and the shills have lost some of their cachet over the past many years.
The irony is that Lucasfilm or a lot of the gaming companies already have an existing way to sidestep these types of attractophobia issues, and that is with having customized character creation. I mean, that's how you avoid all the things. Like any individual player can do whatever they want, whether they want to be as woke as they are or as base as they are. It doesn't matter. You give that agency to them because sadly, one of the best Star Wars games that was ever released that was sadly prematurely canceled was Star Wars Galaxies. That had full character creation, customization, explorable world, tons of missions, interactions, all within the original trilogy. But it was very expensive to run, and it didn't actually survive too long. In fact, it was replaced with Star Wars: The Old Republic, which ended up doing way better. That too also had limited but fair amount of character customization. So the fact that you got some of these sort of stabilized games where you're saying, oh, it's an open world environment, but you're stuck in this avatar, that kind of robs the player of the experience. And then also based on the choice of the avatar given, in this case, one of a not very attractive looking representation of a very attractive looking base model. You've already got potential customers averting their eyes because it doesn't seem like it's going to fit in with their ability to enjoy the gameplay.
That's a very interesting point. Why did they find the need to shoehorn it into a female version of Han Solo? That's an interesting point. It's completely unnecessary based on the scenes and the interactions that look very good in terms of when they go into a bar or a location. It's nicely done. Again, very Uncharted-like. None of the interactions that I recall had anything to do with their sex or gender. It was pretty neutral. You're right, Script. Why not have a make your own
smuggler.
Make your own smuggler. Really? I mean, that would have really solved a crap ton of problems with the game.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on tons of games where you have characters that are made to be looking the best looking ever, and you have others that are fat, obese, crazy scars on them, but they're all doing that for entertainment value of the player.
Right.
And it's fun. And you don't have anything to worry about in those conflicts.
I mean, in Uncharted, the story specifically deals with Drake and Sully. That's one of the best things about the Uncharted series is how cinematic it is and how good the script is and how good their relationship is. But I see none of that in Outlaw.
One of the fascinating things too about the risk they're taking here, to do this virtue signal, if that's what was part of their calculus, is that there are reports this game is costing in excess of $200 million to produce, and that it also has the largest marketing budget that Ubisoft has ever granted to any game in their history. So you're talking about a game that is going to need a huge player base, a huge amount of people to make that purchase for it to pay off. And especially when you have so many people who will be playing this via the Ubisoft streaming service, that really diminishes the amount of capital that's going to flow into pay off all of this capital that was expended to have the game made. They need a huge win with this. So hopefully they're confident. Hopefully it's good. Otherwise, Ubisoft is going to be looking much more like Lucasfilm as of late.
I think it's going to be okay, honestly. I think it's against what the naysayers have, like I said, have hoped. It's again, they've got some technical issues they got to debug. Some aspects of it really do need like an NVIDIA 4090 graphics card, which will only set you back $1,500, which we all have, right?
Oh, I think that they probably can afford that if that's the biggest of their problems.
Anyways,
will it run on a Nintendo Switch? That's what we're all waiting to know.
Yes, which yeah, and this will be interesting. I think this game, more than any of the other games, will test the influence, let's say, of the naysayers of the product to date. You mentioned all the people who have talked about the character work on the lead character, right? Will it matter? That's going to be interesting.
Indeed, that'll be very interesting. We have a couple of super chats here that I think is going to be interesting to all of you on the panel. The Last Millennial says for $9.99, Script and Gentlemen, in storytelling in movies, what are other voices commonly seen in movies and TV that aren't the voice of reason? I'm only familiar with that one.
Oh, the voice of paranoia is a great one. The eccentric voice, the voice of conspiracy. Then, of course, you have voices of various degrees of hate as well. Characters that are stubborn and immovable. Those are various different types of voices, depending on the types of characters you want to play with.
Ah, there you go.
I only know the funny voice. That's the only one.
Yeah. And ActionCom specifies that willowed verb to make an artistic work unavailable due to disgrace or artistic failure. Call websites. I agree with that. And we have to credit Paul Chato and Midnight's Edge because the idea came here after he improved on my SATS law. So it was a joint effort.
Joint effort, completely.
Yeah, I will go with that. And Marksman of 11.7b says Tassi is still broken from game Concord's failure. I'm going to have to trust your word for that. Maybe.
I think Concord is an Overwatch style hero shooter that didn't do well at all.
There you go. And Hypergiver follows that up with Concord is so bad it actually broke Rule 34. Which I also don't know what it is, but I shall trust your word for
If it said Rule 35, I would understand it, but unfortunately. 34,
Robert says for $2, who pushes the button that causes the willowing?
I just like that we're about to be in an era where you don't call it cancel culture anymore. It's willow culture.
That's
Chato got willowed on
X. Real legacy right there. The person that gave us willowing. Now, I would imagine it's Bob Iger, would be my first guess.
Actually, it'd be one step beyond canceling because even a canceled show can still run in reruns. Willowed is completely erased from, like, the only people that are going to have it is if you ripped it off the site, and then it's going to be this kind of black market media. But yeah,
so I would say it's going to be the Christmas special all over again.
I mean, it's definitely in lines. It's definitely in the same pocket of that, right? Because Christmas special, there's only one proper Blu-ray of it that George Lucas made, and he gave it to Carrie Fisher, which is now in the hands of Billy Lord, and that's under the terms that it can never be copied and redistributed. And Carrie only got that so she could put it on to get people out of her house. That's a true story. So yes, it's basically part of the black market media selection at this point. If you have Willow or any of the other shows, because Willow wasn't the only one that Disney completely removed from existence on their platform, that was never distributed anywhere else. So yeah, if you don't have those shows, they no longer exist. That's far worse than cancellation because it's almost memory holding it at the same time. But in the case
Willow,
of Willow,
the Jeff Goldblum show, is that the other one they did?
There's a Jeff Goldblum show. There's the Turner and Hooch show, which is actually quite good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's quite sad at this point. It is them memory holding it, and getting a tax write-off. That's going to be the only record of it. The fact they got tax write-off on it in the financials.
Also on that note, Daniel says for $5, congrats on destroying the Acolyte. To everyone on the panel, I guess, seeing as you have the power to decide what succeeds and what fails.
Yes.
Listen, if they bring it back, we're all going to be wealthier. So I don't know which way this falls for us.
You know what? There are historically, even Pauline Kael, I think she hated Star Wars, actually. I mean, she was a very well-known critic, and she was wrong many, many times, especially with more pop culture, popcorny kind of movies. That I don't think that was really her bag of tricks. But I think what's different is that, when we're complaining about something that's bad, it really is bad. Although that being said, my green light or not review of Time Bandits, there are people out there who genuinely like it.
Oh yeah, I've seen the Time Bandits. It's a very dodgy start, but there's a charm to it that I think comes from the kid actors.
Yes, yeah,
and there are actually dwarves in it.
Yes.
So it's not. They didn't actually. There's another reason that they decided to do what they did with Time Bandits that is yet to be revealed, but clearly it is not trying to avert any offense by refusing to have dwarves be the Time Bandits in this case.
Well, according to my research, Taika was concerned about exactly that.
See, I would lean into that, but if that were the case, then he would have never even entertained bringing dwarves later into the later episodes as well, because that's where
I know. I have some conflict in my own heart about that. I saw them. Yes, they're cherubs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's dwarf light. I think he just maybe had a change of heart and got guilty or whatever. But if the weakest part of the show are the bandits.
Yeah. Because they pulled in quote unquote comedic actors that have actually never had an impact aside from Lisa Kudrow. But Lisa Kudrow is kind of doing a more self-aware Phoebe.
Yes.
And it's, it just.
Anyways, we're not doing a review.
That's a whole nother
thing.
Yeah, indeed. Moving on here with the audience questions and comments. Packing Proton says for $4.99, how do we think Beetlejuice will do if it's good? So all the property kids today might think it's new. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's got Jenna Ortega, who does have something of a draw. Not the huge one, but in the heyday of film, but enough. You've got the parents that were kids when Beetlejuice came out originally. Happy to see Michael Keaton and Catherine O'Hara return along with Winona Ryder. So you've got a little bit of nostalgia edge to that. However, my concerns are not so much with Tim Burton seeing if he could recapture the magic. It's the fact that we have two notorious television writers who were kind of like part of the founding fathers of the whole woke ideology into television. They did Smallville. They did the whole idea of emasculating the superhero and building a team around them, as opposed to them being the paragons of aspirational goals. It's gonna be an interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing it, wanting to give it positive vibes, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
We'll see how that turns out.
And
Paul,
quickly, I want to
just
real fast. I want to congratulate Packing Protons, seeing his name pop up. I believe Packing Protons was one of the first people to realize that the Acolyte merch had been taken off the Disney store and notified a bunch of people to let us know and start investigating into it. So kudos to Packing Protons. And my very short assessment of Beetlejuice is that if it's really good, it has a chance to connect with that Nightmare Before Christmas crowd and have a great run all the way through Halloween. That's what I'm hoping for, because we need another good movie. But yeah, I share the same concerns as Script on this one.
So my thought is, I think it's going to open really well. It has all the elements of a good opening weekend. Now, whether it has legs, I think is going to be based on what Script Doctor talked about. I'm not familiar with the writers he's mentioning, but that's kind of depressing. Why these people keep getting work, I have no idea. Maybe there's nobody better in Hollywood, which is even more depressing.
I think it has more to do with that there's 30 years of a strong relationship between these two writers, Al Goff and Miles Miller, with Warner Brothers and their properties than there's been since. They are one of the reasons. One of their shows, Smallville, actually was the flagship show for CW when it changed over from the WB to merge with Paramount and become the CW. That was their thing, and they nailed down a model that was used for the remainder of that company that appeared to be sustainable on the surface, but as we've seen with the WB literally giving it away for free, in addition to the debt that it incurred, that it was not a sustainable model. And
but that was Berlanti's fault.
Well, Berlanti actually worked for them, and he's their acolyte, if you want to keep it a little bit.
Ooh.
So he took their model and he ran with it in his direction. And what we see here is you've got a model that appealed to a demographic that was in touch with their teenage years, even though they were long in the rearview mirror, and played into that to allow for a little bit of nostalgia and reminiscing and whatnot. But it was lacking the depth and competency that network shows would have to compete in order for it to be really successful. And we know this to be true because Supergirl was actually a CBS produced show.
Yes.
And it performed so terribly that CW had to buy it if they wanted to maintain that
and Callista Flockhart agreed to be in just one episode and then bailed
because they were shooting in LA and she refused to move up to Vancouver, and I don't blame her for that.
No, but I don't think she wanted to be like on a CW show. That would be a personal. Anyway,
yeah, she's in a hit show on Fox, and then she's going to be in her later years a mediocre show on CW. Yeah, that's a bad career.
That's bad. I have to run. I just realized it's 2. I gotta go someplace. So I'm bailing quickly. I will have an appalling news, a fun one later on today. So stay tuned for that, everyone.
Yeah, do check that out. Link, of course, is in the description as always.
Bye, everyone.
Take care. Thanks
Later,
for
Paul.
joining us.
Later. And Script, we need to arrange another get together.
Yes, and you'll all be getting a call from a friend in a later this afternoon.
I didn't know she was underage.
No, it's a guy.
Oh, okay.
Even worse.
I didn't know he was underage. Bye.
Later, Mr. Clash.
Chato don't discriminate. So yeah. And also, here's a cool one for you, Pro, again from back in Protons. Also, Universal Studios apparently getting a Star Trek the original series ride of some sorts.
So we've heard that rumor. I can tell you there is a much bigger announcement on the horizon for Epic Universe. I am not yet allowed to talk about it. All I can say is Epic Universe in its first incarnation is not going to be the end. They have big things planned for years to come in terms of expansions. And the first thing they may do is huge.
All right, cool. So yeah, look forward to hearing more about that. I'd go for a Star Trek the original series ride. If it's like if it's the original 60s aesthetics and stuff, I'll come to America for that. Hell yeah. And I'm not
would
even
be
a
awesome.
Parks guy. But I'd come to America for that. Of course, it doesn't take much to get me to America, but definitely go for that. And then ActionCom says, James Bond fans have been asking about the current state and the future of the James Bond franchise. What does Midnight's Edge say? I have my own thoughts on that, but before we get to mine, Script, what do you think they should do with the future of James Bond? What is the future of James Bond? Have you heard anything?
I haven't heard anything other than the fact that they have a short list for possible actors to play the role in the near future. They're all men. They're all British. They're all white. I know that. But as far as I know, they don't have a story or a direction of what they want to do. My advice would be, I think it's past the Rubicon, and it is now like the stories of old should be found have a foundation in the Cold War era. Whether that be from the 60s to the 80s is immaterial to me. I just think that needs to be the context of what James Bond should be going forward. It's now like Hercules and Legends of Sinbad and all those, Jason and the Argonauts. There's a reason they're still set in ancient Greece. I think for James Bond, he needs to now be set in Cold War, Cold War UK.
I totally agree. 100%. It should be a period piece now. It'll make those films more timeless. And the more and more advanced technology gets, the less that James Bond works with the cool gadgets and things. And you've already stripped away his ability to be sort of a playboy. So you're not going to have much of a James Bond left if you put it in today's times.
I agree completely with both of you. The way to do James Bond right now is first wait 10 years, give it a break, and then what you do is you do each and every one of the books in order, and you make them period pieces set in the 1950s. That's how you do it. And then going back to gaming a little bit, here's a cool one. Chaos Sonic says for $5, "Hi, did you learn from Grumps," he said this on X, "that Activision is now trying to change DEI to IG, aka inclusive growth? No matter what, they will fail." And yeah, what he's referring to here is an internal email that was sent out to Activision employees, where they're basically saying that we are changing the name of the DEI department and their strategies from DEI to IG, aka inclusive growth. This will not change any policies or anything like that. We are just changing the branding. This was an exclusive from Grumps. Hope to have him the next few days to talk more about that. But meanwhile, Pro, what does that tell you in light of some other news items related both to gaming and the world at large? It seems like DEI isn't this big money getter as some people thought it was.
So the cynical side of this could say, well, it's just a rebranding. The positive side says, or the optimistic side might say, well, at least this points to DEI having been a damaged concept now, to the point that they're having to change the acronyms for, public conception. The other thing, though, is you'll notice that when they say inclusive growth, that seems to me to be particularly absent of the equity side of diversity and inclusion, right? So inclusive growth, I don't see how you can have inclusive growth without diversity, which is necessary for them to have inclusion of anything. And then, of course, inclusion is still in there, but the equity isn't there. And equity is the part of DEI that is so damning to the finances of these companies. So I wonder if Wall Street and beyond is beginning to tire of the equity part, because it strikes at meritocracy. And without meritocracy, these companies really struggle to make money, because they're hiring people who object to the idea of having to produce at a higher level than others. And that's just a failure for fail.
Well, the other part too is that equity is usually used in terms in regards to value of property, and to try to apply that to people is akin to slavery, and I don't like that personally. I think that's evil. But like, to your point, and just one correction, it's actually initialisms, because acronyms are words, and initialisms are, you say each letter individually as part of the identifier. So just a little fun fact out there for all those listening. The idea with the inclusive growth is that growth is very counter to what would normally be equity in relation to people, because equity is all about flattening the curve and creating a baseline, where growth is about rising everyone to their full potential. So you have way more potential in that approach if it is going to be beyond just a rebranding. And we can only cross our fingers that that's the case. However, I've seen the whole DEI stuff being changed in other forms of industry, like they're doing it as JEDI or EDI or EID for all those like jumbling of letters around in order to produce essentially the same outcome, because they don't like the idea, the fact that after 8 years of it being pretty much used as an advertising point for clout within these companies, it has had the exact opposite effect of what they expected. And I think them shuffling the letters around, or at least trying to rebrand it, is their first step in trying to salvage a mistake that they finally have come to terms with. But at the same time, it's still up to them to take it the distance. Is it going to be a continuation of these pseudo discriminatory applications to people that could actually benefit in growth of a company and as well as themselves and the other people that are also qualified in that company? Or are they going to try to change the parameters of what their business is to score points with some sort of ethereal, non-existent mob that really can't do damage unless you allow it to do damage, just for the sake of saying, look, we're not racist, as opposed to doing what was being done prior to this, which was like, we know we're not racist. We don't even have to acknowledge it. We're just hiring the best people for the job, and their success makes waves for everyone else.
And I would just like to chime in that the one really problematic word here that remains is growth. Talking about inclusivity and growth, what history has shown so far is that if you try diversity, inclusion, or equity, regardless of which term, the only growth that you get from it is negative. So you can do some inclusive stuff, then call it inclusive deterioration, because that's all that's going to happen. You cannot grow a company, product, or anything with inclusivity. This is now proven pretty well by history. If by inclusivity you mean artificial inclusion and overrepresentation, doesn't work. There's no growth there. They can try and rebrand as much as they want, but Chaosonic is entirely right. They will fail. And Packing Protons said for another $5 for a pro, my James Bond / Inspector Gadget mashup, The Jones Files, needs a theme song written. How much does one of those cost for vacation radio airing? I have to say the Inspector Gadget theme song, that's pretty catchy stuff. So you have a challenge there.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly how much the cost would be. I can tell you that when we're working on songs and music, we have a team of musicians, and then we also take the samples that they create and we work with AI tools to sort of expand upon that. So it's the musician part that I'm not sure what that's going to be the cost for you, but I would recommend find some friends who are keen on having some fun and play around with some music, and then start practicing with the tools and find out what you can come up with. I think you have all the creativity in the world, Packing Protons, and I cannot wait to hear it. I hope you'll share it with us when you have it ready to go.
Speaking of sharing, Script, can you share something on this? Tommy Review says for $2, Toxic Avenger gets shelved, but not The Crow. Has Toxic Avenger gotten shelved yet, or have they just not found distribution? I honestly don't know.
As far as I know, they just still are looking for distribution. And I will say this, it does make one wonder, how bad is Toxic Avenger that it couldn't get distribution when something like The Crow, which I have seen, I got to see a screener of it, is very terrible, that got distribution. Part of me thinks is that The Crow may just be a bit more of a higher IP on the scale of things compared to the Toxic Avenger, which is primarily trauma, and trauma is very much it's not as broadly common as one would think. You have to kind of be a cinephile or really into some twisted stuff to be aware of trauma and follow it. Most general audiences are not in that sphere. So yeah, as far as I know, it's still looking for a distribution home, and I don't think it's going to be shelved. And I also don't believe it has the ability to be completely willowed, as it were, because I do believe there are some external investors involved that do have a stake in this movie. So if they want to not have to give that money back, they have to find a distributor as soon as possible to start paying off those investments.
I have a couple of questions for both of you as well. Script, continuing on this, another movie that I know is looking for international distribution, but that years later hasn't found it, at least as far as I'm aware, is Red Sonja. Have you heard anything of what's up with that?
No, I wish I did, because apparently there's a lot of stuff already completed on the project. Like, it's
they've done filming it, and they're in post-production, last I heard. So I would think that maybe it's time to get some sales going here. I mean, The Crow even was like fully sold 2 years ago, before even a single frame of footage was shot. I mean, that's why they filmed it. Whereas in the case of Red Sonja, this movie is practically done, and it doesn't have one single distributor, as far as I know.
Which means that they're probably going to do some of the fall film markets to try and secure distribution. If not, they'll be continuing to make either a great sizzle reel or pitch package for the following film market, because that's going to be their best bet if their previous exploits have not returned anything. And it also comes down to how much of a potential audience could there be for essentially a sword and sorcery style film, because we haven't seen many of them as tent poles in a while.
Yeah, and I still think that they made the wrong movie at the wrong time. That they were a little bit too behind the curve.
Yeah, also a very strong possibility. Yes.
Yeah. Indeed. Then moving on through other super chat, we have a few we'll get through all by the end. I'm just picking those that I think are the most relevant for our guests here. And yeah, before we get that, I actually had one question for Pro as well. We spoke earlier today about Alien's box office. Now, have your insider sources said anything about how Disney is reacting to the Alien box office? Because the media has been saying what kind of big hit it is, but I don't see it that way. What I see is that attendance-wise, it's doing about the same thing as Alien Covenant. And Alien Covenant cost the, I hope not complete abortion of that particular storyline, but it appears to be picking up somewhere else now with Romulus. So have you heard anything in Disney? Are they pleased with how Romulus is performing for them? And what are their future plans for that franchise? One which has no park presence, no merchandise to speak of, so it kind of like has to work on its own unless they intend to build that out anything more. And does it even have the audience for that? I'd love to pick your brain on that matter.
Well, I wish that I had some really, great exclusive information on what is being chatted about inside Disney. Unfortunately, the only thing that I do have on Alien Romulus is something that we've known about for a little bit, and that is that Disney is going to be releasing it on Hulu. And so part of what they're thinking is that the Hulu ad revenue that can be driven through people watching Alien Romulus might be a saving grace for it. So one of the things that you see happen with Disney is that when they have a movie such as, for example, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, if it's a box office fail and then it also goes to Disney Plus, the problem is that there's no money really made on Disney Plus for these shows. Now, they have added an ad tier to Disney Plus, but it's still minuscule in comparison to Hulu, and they largely mask that. That they're putting this on Hulu is an indication that they know they need to make some money up to justify this film. I don't sense that there's a huge push right now for anything Fox related inside Disney. And the way that might begin to change is if we get an announcement in the future about the future CEO being Dana Walden, because of course she comes from Fox. So you could see some interest, but I'm also not convinced that Dana Walden has any sort of obligation or loyalty to anywhere she comes from. She seems to me to be sort of like a sponge that just absorbs up and regurgitates whatever she needs to rise up in her career. So I don't know, but Alien Romulus itself going to Hulu, break even maybe in terms of once you add the streaming numbers to it. I don't think it's a big win for Disney whatsoever.
Oh, for sure, it's going to break even long before it leaves theaters. I'm just unsure if they're happy with how it's performing.
I haven't heard that. I haven't heard anything in terms of them being ecstatic with it. I think that Disney largely isn't paying much attention to the Fox stuff. I mean,
that's what I'm thinking as well, which is really bad news for the Fox stuff. But sorry,
well, I mean, just think about how little fanfare Planet of the Apes received earlier this year. I mean, it came out, it was mentioned briefly in one earnings report, and nothing in terms of post-release support or excitement.
And it outperformed Alien Romulus.
Not only that, it also technically outperformed the previous Planet of the Apes because it cost a lot less to do. So I mean, it's a decent bonus point, but I mean, to Pro's point, 100%, it doesn't seem like Disney is really pleased by that might be more to do with ego in place, because again, this is under the 20th Century Studios banner. General audiences are not fully aware yet that that is a Disney subsidiary these days. So when you do get small traffic of reverence towards movies like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes or Alien Romulus, which I did not personally enjoy, Disney's going to Disney. They're not really going to push it. I mean, the only people I've seen that's actually studio heads or studio employees that are pushing the 20th Century stuff are the people that directly work under 20th Century Studios, like Steve Asbell. I follow him on Twitter. He's, the president over there. He's the one that's pushing this the most and trying to get people excited for these films. But you don't see it on any of the Bob Iger's social media handles, as far as I've been able to track. You don't see it on anyone else in the executive area that's Disney exclusive. It almost feels like they're treating 20th Century Studios as a competitor instead of a subsidiary that should be given a nice boost when they do something right that audiences respond positively to.
That is so messed up. You're right, of course. But yeah, that's kind of like why I'm worrying for the future of both the Alien and the Predator franchise under Disney ownership. That those are at the wrong studio. I mean, I wish that Warner would have had them, because that would have been a far better place for them, I think. Than
more risky too. Like they would have actually pushed the envelope, because that's what those franchises require.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that the storyline that was started with Prometheus and Covenant, that I've learned to appreciate a little bit more after seeing the extended versions of those movies, which were fan-made, by the way, and they're so much better than the official releases, that the storylines in them is just never going to be resolved, not under Disney.
And it needs $30 to $40 more million at the global box office to hit that break-even point. I think you're right. I think it will achieve that. But they probably were looking for a bigger win. I mean, the budget for this was quite small. So, they probably didn't think that 300 million was going to be hard. And 300 million is now looking, like it was a trudge to get there.
That's what I'm thinking. I think that they have to be at least mildly disappointed with the box office for the movie.
But the other part too is they're going to mitigate that by saying, well, how well is it performing critically based off of Alien Covenant? And so far it looks like people are responding a little bit more positively to Romulus than Covenant.
Yeah, well, just look at the second weekend box office for proof of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 10 percentage points better second weekend drop than that one had. So yeah, you can't argue with that. But still, opening weekend out the same box office as Alien Covenant. So that's kind of like maybe the new ceiling for the franchise. Is that good enough for them to continue with it, or is that too little for Disney? That I don't know. And how is the TV series Alien Earth going to perform, which is set even before Prometheus? It's like, I don't know what they're thinking and planning over there.
Neither did I, but never forget, all roads lead to Alien Resurrection. I mean, that's the furthest one down the line in the chronology. Yeah. So if you didn't like that movie, it's like, well, guess what? Any movie that they're going to do is eventually going to lead to that outcome of, Sigourney Weaver being reanimated, being cloned and made an alien hybrid human. The very thing that they actually alluded to in the Alien Romulus plot, they achieved like 100 some odd years later. So it's it's quite tragic to see a franchise that had so much potential early on kind of really lose the rails. But such is the way of things when you don't get the right teams involved and you have certain levels of meddling and certain expectations and also certain leadership that, if you can call it leadership, that has their own goals at hand.
Indeed. And then moving on here, we have Packing Protons, who says for another $5, these new studio heads don't want the old stuff to beat out their great new stuff. That's why they probably don't re-release things regarding Return of the Jedi's 40th. And yeah, this, of course, is in reference to what we said about the box office and how incredibly well Coraline is doing in release. Far better than The Crow, for instance. So, yeah, good point there. Then we have a couple from Accident Seller, who sets for 50 Norwegian krona. Regarding Pisney Corporation, what I've learned in life is never underestimate corporate greed. They always push the boundaries of what they can get away with. This is indeed true. Jason Webster continues for $2 Australian. The Disney apocalypse continues. Backing Proton says for $5 regarding lawsuit. I wonder if Disney is just running out of money for long suits, hence the retreat. No, I don't think so. I think it's all about they do not want the questionable legal thing that they put into their terms and conditions to be squashed once and for all in court, because then they have to remove it. And they don't want that. I think it really is as simple as that.
And the PR damage too. It was they didn't want this out in the public. They didn't want normies to find out, and this was becoming more problematic the longer it lasted.
Yeah, I'm sure that that's well. But I do think that they can afford all the lawyers. That is not an issue. They have far bigger problems than that. Sapphire says for $2 Canadian, rest in peace, the Acolyte. All the YouTubers will miss you. Well, I won't, but I'm sure some will.
Bittersweet.
At least the clicks of it. But I have to say, so far, it being cancelled hasn't hurt views. Let's put it that way. And Olaf, our wrench, has been a member for 37 months, says even Jeff Hicks from World Class Bullshitters did a video. In all stores, he found 4 Acolyte single action figures, most probably in pre-order. Maybe reached Gina value now. Yeah, I don't know how collectible those things are going to be, other than those with special interest. And Hypergiver 2 says for $2, forget Outlaws, embrace Monkey and his bunking stick. Yeah, this is that other game, like this Wukong or whatever it's called, right?
That's right.
The problematic game.
It's driving the woke journalists mad. They can't stand it that it's doing well. So
because this monkey is so straight white male, is that the sticking point, that the monkey isn't gay enough or something?
I couldn't even listen. I can't keep track of the reasons that the IGN quote unquote journalists, take offense at things. It's hard to track anymore, but they don't like it, and it's doing well, and it proves once again that they don't have the influence they thought they had, and that drives them even more mad. So,
yeah. Well, it's fun to do. Like, this is quick and easy video. So yeah, bring the rage. Tell us what you really feel. Packing Protons continues for $10. I think the reason they didn't renew the Acolyte and are removing it so fast as to get back at Kathy for green lighting it in the first place when she wasn't supposed to. Well, we don't know that they're removing it yet, but if they wanted to stop it, I'm sure they had plenty opportunity to do so before without there necessarily being anything to get back at her. Though I do find it interesting that this leaked. Pro, why do you think that? Because again, they never announced that the Acolyte wasn't getting a second season. This was leaked. This was a leak straight from Disney to Deadline Hollywood, so someone wanted it out there. Now that I have both of you industry professionals in the panel here, what are your takes on why the cancellation was leaked to Deadline Hollywood? Who stands to gain from that, or who gets humiliated from that? Script, what say you?
Well, I think it's kind of ironic because the show's announcement was technically leaked to the trades in order for it to be greenlit, if we don't remember. Because as I said on this show, as I've also shared with the Pro, Disney put out a press release saying that they would not be taking any new pitches or any new developments for Disney Plus at the time. It would be May 2021, if memory serves, or March 2021, definitely an M month. And they said they'd be working what they used the word salvaging what they had. And lo and behold, everyone, including my representation at the time and my colleagues, we all said, okay, so we're just not pitching to Disney. It's the only studio in town that's not taking anything right now because they want to try and right the ship, so they say. And then a few weeks later, we get a leaked announcement that Leslie Headland has met with Kathleen Kennedy, and she has a Star Wars series she wants to pitch, and it looks like that's going to be on the docket. And it took another month before Disney finally publicly confirmed that was actually going to be the case. And the blowback in the industry was like, what the hell? We said, you told us not to pitch to you because you're trying to right the ship. You let this person come in, just regardless of her reputation and the people that she knew. You let her come in and pitch anyways, and you turned down people with far more pedigree and experience prior because you wanted to sort yourself out. Now you've announced now you've done this this leaked announcement of this show, and then you've confirmed it just several weeks later. We all feel betrayed by you, Disney, for basically, saying, okay, guys, we're not starting the race. Oh, but you, Leslie, you can start running right now. That's essentially what happened. And now we have kind of the inverse. We have, well, Disney has not officially said that the show is canceled, but someone has definitely leaked to the trades, just like they leaked its announcement that it's not coming back for season 2. And I think that's quite ironic and also kind of karmic.
Very good point, Script. Pro, what say you? Who do you think ultimately leaked it to Deadline Hollywood that The Acolyte isn't getting any second season? And what do you think they hope to achieve by it?
So Disney does not like to piss in the punch bowl. Disney likes to leak when it stinks. And I think that's exactly what we have here. Why make a big public statement that has somebody attached to it, or that can be condemned on your social media accounts? Why not just leak it so that nobody really has somebody to blame? And that's part of the game, is that you can't know exactly who leaked it, because that was the entire purpose of the leak in the beginning. So in terms of the Acolyte and why they leaked it, they don't want to have anybody attached to it to face the mob, the very small 40,000, 70,000, whatever it is mob. This is Disney's way of doing things. This is what they did with Gina, for example. Script is exactly right. They didn't leak that the Acolyte was being picked up because it was good news. They leaked it because it was going to make people mad. And they knew it was going to make people mad. So they leaked it. And they leaked this the same way.
But why let anyone know that it was cancelled in the first place? This is what I don't get. Because just consider Obi-Wan Kenobi. Mm-hmm. That one is probably never getting a second season, yet we have gotten no leak saying this is done, it's never coming back. Why just say nothing and hope that people forget about it as they move on, instead of letting people know right away, just ahead of the release of Star Wars Outlaws, when you have the activists ready in combat mode, ready to defend Star Wars anyway? Why use that time to release, oh, by the way, this actively ain't coming back? What would anyone achieve with that?
Well, Rian Johnson is clearly still getting his trilogy, and beyond that...
Well, that's what I mean. Why has no one leaked that? That's not happening. But here, someone went to the effort to let the world know this isn't happening. We haven't heard that for anything else, Star Wars. Oh, we've heard it, for instance, for the Taika Waititi movie, which... Well, that was much less solid. That was someone who said let it slip at the convention. Here you have Disney themselves leak, this thing is cancelled. We haven't really heard that before in the realm of Lucasfilm, other than that pilot thing, that series from the Wonder Woman lady. That's the
other than the Rogue Squadron movie. Yeah.
That's the only other thing I can think of where a leak has come out. This is actively not happening, rather than just say nothing and hope you all forget about it. That seems to be the modus operandi. Not in this case, though. And it makes, as far as I'm concerned, it makes everyone involved with the Acolyte look really bad, because their series obviously failed that way. So to me, it looks like it's not just a matter of making people move on. To me, and this is just my speculation and my reading of it, it looks like someone wants to make someone else look bad. That's what it looks like to me.
I think that might be the case, but it might be in twofold, because let's speculate for a moment that and go off the statement that Leslie Headland said, which she said if the show fails, it's because of her. She admits that right beforehand, before it even airs. She said,
yeah, this was put in the New York Times, even the major spin piece, the one with all of the quotes that the rest of the media would pick up on. There it was. There they even had in the intro that this is a giant opportunity, or an opportunity for galactic humiliation. That's not something I invented for the thumbnails. That's right there in the New York Times.
Correct.
So I might as well have written it.
So I'm wondering, what if the ego with regards to the production of The Acolyte is so great that they think that they have a hit show, and because Disney themselves have not confirmed that it's going to continue, they decide to leak that it's going to be canceled, hoping that their fans will come to their rescue and do a letter writing campaign a la Star Trek, the original series, or say Family Guy, to try and encourage that there's an audience for this show and that Disney needs to stop, delaying their calls to greenlight the second season. I can see the ego allowing them to do that, but at the same time, I can also see someone in the department being like, Leslie and her team keep calling us, asking and demanding and begging us for a second season. We might as well just release it to the public that it's not going to happen because it did not perform what we needed it to in the way that we needed it to.
Yeah, and I think the two part that I was going to say, and I think this goes right along with what Script Doctor is suggesting. I think this embarrassed Disney. The viewership actually embarrassed them, and I think that Leslie has been publicly calling for support, campaigning publicly to get a second season, and they probably wanted that to stop. I think they knew that wasn't going to do them any good for her to continue doing that.
Well, then they failed, because now is when the calls really ramped up from all the trades. I mean, you even have Forbes actively making a call to arms. At least Paul Tassi did that in his article as of like 2-3 days ago.
Of all the things to call arms for.
Back in today's article, but there was a call to action a few days ago.
Just imagine that the acolyte is the thing that drives you to try to create some sort of movement around. Talk about some of the worst ground you could possibly take to try to push forth with your little army.
Yeah, what a hill to die on. Indeed. Moving on with the super chats again. We will get through all in the end. I am just selecting the ones I think our guests will find most interesting. Well, I still have you guys here. Too Tired says for $5, 30-year plus gamer here. I've played many crappy games in my day. My biggest gripe with Star Wars Outlaws is dialogue. She sounds like a complete stranger in the Star Wars universe. And yeah, I guess that's a valid point. Accident Seller says for 50 Norwegian krona. So the Acolyte, which was meant to stick it to the patriarchy, was cancelled by the white patriarchy, aka Bog Iger. That's hilarious. And he clarifies, unintended typo on previous super, Bog Iger. It fits though. I agree with that. Bog Iger does fit. So yeah, it's funny how that works. And the wild man of Yavin sends a few bucks to fund our boat. Look forward to season 2. Oh, thank you. I'm sure that so does Leslie Headland when she stops crying. And Master Clockwork says some of us refuse to play Ubisoft games, and yeah, I believe that's going to be a problem for them. So they better hope that this performs, because Assassin's Creed is next. That's gonna be fun. Packing Protons also says, in my exploration on X, J3PO is trending. Indeed, I shared your tweet on the matter, Pro, because I also feel let's talk about that a bit. What's going on with J3PO?
Well, we even have right now an article up on that part place covering the situation with Drunk 3PO. And I've talked with Jay earlier today, and it seems like he's been hit with the same thing I got hit with before, which was totally, nonsense and frivolous. It was what appears to be, at least for me, it was an automated reused content thing that happened. And when your YouTube channel is such a huge part of revenue for your business, it can be terrifying to have that happen. And I'm sure Jay has been extremely stressed over this. But this is one of those things that needs to be addressed over the next 6 months to a year by YouTube, I think, and that is that they need to find a way to not demonetize long-lasting, upstanding channels that are producing great content based on, reports by anonymous users or some sort of algorithm that catches something. There needs to be an actual manual review of these things before this happens, because it really does put the channel in the position of being guilty until proven innocent, and that's not a great place to be.
Yeah, I think this is really, really messed up, and it's a system that can so easily be misappropriated.
Yeah,
and you have
people can go up there and help. They can help Jay. Just go to X, and very politely, and polite is the important part of this, put out a tweet or a post that mentions Team YouTube and just say, Jay's a great YouTube channel. We love him. We think there's been a mistake, and that's the best thing you can do, I think, to help Jay. Bringing awareness is number one.
So their excuse on this one is reused content. That's their excuse.
Yes.
Now, this was the same excuse they used on you guys. Reused content. You don't reuse content, do you? What qualified as that?
Well, who knows? They never tell you. In fact, the claim against the Pro channel was so frivolous that apparently it wasn't even manually reviewed. It was just like they didn't even watch the appeal video we did. They just immediately revoked it or rescinded it. And it could have been as simple as stock footage that we have of Walt Disney World that we take ourselves. If we used that stock footage twice in a video, they may have made that claim. It's difficult to know exactly. This is actually even more dangerous if you're a gaming channel, for example, because if you're a channel that covers gaming, those cutscenes that appear in any game that you play or the main menu, it looks to YouTube like it's reused content. And so they really need to get a handle on this, where this needs to go through manual review once you reach a certain threshold of subscribers before they do this.
Yeah. Script, any thoughts before we move on?
All I know is that YouTube is still the Wild West. It is
a harsh mistress.
Its algorithm is actually programmed by user interaction more so than what they do on their back end. I know that for certain because I do have a friend that has been working there for the last year and a half or so. And so anytime there's weird behaviors from audiences, that creates a flag, and then that causes issues like this. That is not, I believe, not only has this happened to you, Pro, but also happened to our friends over at Echo Base Network as well. So yeah, it could be fueled by whatever's trending and the video content that's making to take advantage of that trending, which is always good business practice. It could also be fueled by certain bot interaction that causes a flag with that algorithm. Who knows at this point? But the fact of the matter is that clearly Google and YouTube as their subsidiary has not the manpower in place to actually properly handle these types of issues in an appropriate and reasonable amount of time. And that seems to be more, it's their problem that makes it everyone's problem. And that should be resolved quickly, because things of this nature just seem unjustified, where you have a logical rule in place, but it can be easily manipulated to take it to hurt the people that are not actually trying to exploit their audiences.
Absolutely. And we obviously stand by Jay. So everyone go to X and gently retweet and lend your support, and have YouTube look into this matter, because obviously there's been a mistake, or so we hope. And then going back to the top here, GRN Raptor says for $10, the only thing I do on Labor Day or Commie Day is go to BD Ubs and get people to serve me beer and fancy chicken nuggets. They enjoy laboring, and I enjoy the rest relaxation that I pay for. Win-win. I agree. That's a good celebration of Commie Day. Celebrate the work in it. Absolutely. That's how you do it. Mario Trujillo has been a member for 20 months, and we are glad to have you. Dash Attack has been a member for 28 months, saying, Blink Twice has such a backwards ending. The user of the app, or the one that was used by the app, becomes the user of the app, because we're on YouTube here. Garbage movie, ultra woke, wish I didn't see it, so many holes. Oh, well, thanks for the warning. I shall stay clear of it. And ActionCom says, Strange Darling is gonna do great on streaming. Yeah, maybe we shall see. Kathleen Morrison has been a member for 18 months, and we are so glad to have you here. Jason Webster says for $5, Andre, you could say Riley, the lead female protagonist in the Hellraiser remake, smells like the scripts written for most of the recent blockbusters. This is true, and for those that came in late, this is a reference to me saying that I like that movie apart from the lead, because she's such a dirty, filthy, hippie bag lady that I could practically smell her through the screen, and that kind of like ruined the movie for me a little bit. It's hard to sympathize with that kind of a lead. Jesus Davila sent us a super stick. Everyone, please smash that like in honor of that super sticker. And Jason Webster says for $5 The Thing and The Fly are standout examples on how you produce remakes. This is a very, very good point. There are some great remakes out there, and these are among the very best ones. Something The Crow wasn't. Let's see how Nosferatu does later this year and how that's going to stack up, which will be the third Nosferatu movie. But meanwhile, yeah, those are examples of remakes better than the original. Accident Seller says, Tom looks different. Also, he got an ear piercing. Yeah, this is true because we had Mr. Brawley, who has the same haircut as Tom here earlier today. Master Clockwork says, some of us just refuse to play Ubisoft games. I think we had this one already, but good thing cannot be said enough. Marksman of 117B says, I'm sorry if I got this one way too late. Paul mixed up Dustborn for Concord. Dustborn is the first game where being triggered is a superpower. You can use gaslight and sow discord to fight government. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's quite some gaming features right there.
That seems like you have just fun with it for all the for irony's sake, as opposed to like proper, legitimate enjoyment.
I can just see Andre's eyes opening wider and thinking, "Oh, the videos I'm about to make."
It's like, how woke can you go in a video game to the point where you destroy society? Can you do that in this game? Because that would actually be kind of fun. Kind of like how those old plague games where you try and release a plague into the digital world and see how many people you can infect. That it feels like this is what Dustborn is, right?
Yeah, no, like the game developer in me just thinks, one of these days I have to make that Star Trek game I've always wanted to make. But yeah, well, we'll see what we can do about this Dustborn thing. Like me being Norwegian and having doubled in game development myself. So yeah, qualified to take on that. So that should be fun. ActionCom says for $5. Script, interesting what you said about the Playboy lifestyle. You'd think it would never lose its appeal.
Well, I mean, with regards to James Bond, and the Playboy lifestyle that he lives, his is different. Because he's a guy that's cultured, but he's using that culture to hide the fact that he is essentially a mercenary for the government. But yeah, we don't really have those types of lifestyles in current era right now. But we'll see what happens in the future. It might be redefined where it is a bit less chauvinistic, but also a bit more still appealing as it was, 30, 40 years ago. I mean, the only reason it's lost its appeal is because certain popular people have influenced it to be of a less appropriate lifestyle than what it was before. Because it's not always about being like exclusive bachelor or bachelorette and throwing money around. It was also about like, well, what do you do with that, and is your influence being used for selfish reasons or selfless reasons? Because I mean, there's a reason in fiction they call it, Bruce Wayne's the millionaire playboy. Well, he's a very affluent man who big in philanthropy, but he's that bachelor, the person, the one man that no woman can kind of pin down, but does a lot for his community because of that's who he is. So those types of archetypes we don't really have much in our real world these days.
I'm sure I could find the right balance between the two if you let the option. Yeah. The Last Millennial says for $9.99. Script, what are some examples of the voice of reason? Maybe in Shrek, Mulan, Incredibles. And what's the relationship of the voice of reason and the protagonist?
Well, I'm not sure about Mulan because I've not really seen it. With The Incredibles, I believe the voice of reason plays into not just the old man at the CIA that kind of funds them, but also Elastigirl. She's kind of a voice of reason. With Shrek, I can't remember. Voice of reasons are usually in like a supporting or mentorship role. Obi-Wan Kenobi is a voice of reason. The very, very classic one, easy to put there. Yoda as well.
Isn't Donkey the voice of reason in Shrek because he's trying to convince Shrek to open himself up to relationships?
That's actually a very good argument. I would say, yeah, Donkey, because the thing is, the voice of reason doesn't always have to be kind of wise and stoic. They can be eccentric and fun as well. It's about the content that's coming out of their mouths and their goals as opposed to how they execute it. So yeah, I would say Donkey's a great one for that to support into there. Excuse me, to support that argument. Yes.
Right. Donkey is the archetype of the sage as the fool. It's the
trickster
position there. Yep.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And then One Punch Man Token fan, that's a great combo right there. Has been a member for 6 months, and we're so glad to have you. And Nicholas Horton has been a member for 38 months, says, "Hail panelists, and to my neighbor across the North Sea, Andre, any Viking comic planned featuring yourself fighting against the woke? Hail, Andre." No such comic is planned right now, but now that you put the idea in my mind, I kind of want to see that. So if there is any comic book creators with some resume behind you that would love to go indie and do something like that, hit me up. And with that, we are actually fully caught up. So, Script, where can people find you? Even though your links are in the description, but repeat it anyway.
Yeah, you can find me on the Twitter X's at ScriptDoctorPhD. You can also find me on YouTube at youtube.com/thescriptdoctor, where every Saturday I host a show called Scripts on Saturdays, where we review screenplays currently circulating around Hollywood that are up for production. In fact, the John Madden script, the very first show, is actually being produced and being directed by David O. Russell, starring Nicolas Cage. So if you want to get really early on the ground floor when it comes to things that could be made into movies or television in Hollywood or elsewhere, Scripts on Saturdays is a great source for that. You can also get some extra tips and extra access to myself by also joining my Patreon at patreon.com/thescriptdoctor. And thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pro, before you get to plug your stuff, Justin Channel says, "Holy cow, I found the actual photo on which Andre's profile picture is based." Yeah, it's out there. I really do look like that, for real. People that have met me can swear to that. So yeah. And
golden Viking horns and all.
Yeah, well, that depends on which day you catch me, but yeah. But Pro, thanks for joining us today. It's always a pleasure. And where can people find you other than, of course, WDW Pro on YouTube and that Park Place? Anything else you want to push in particular? What do you have coming up?
Well, it's been a joy. In 30 minutes, you can find the new video coming out on the Pro channel that will cover the residual payments that are being cut out from the Acolyte actors with the merchandise removal. And so that's something I think that those wishing to bring it back have not yet realized. So that'll be a lot of fun to be the source that they go, oh, wait a minute, we should be even more angry, and yet we hate this guy. So that'll be fun. And then this Thursday, we're going to be doing a second Pro show of the week. We've also got Star Wars Outlaws live coverage and review on that game place. And finally, folks, Thursday we'll also be releasing new music for Vacation Radio, the original music content channel that we are doing as we continue to plug towards our future of creating brand new animated shorts. We look forward to getting into entertainment creation, not just criticism.
That is fantastic. So everyone, make sure to check that out. Check out Toxic Femininity later tonight. I do believe that the ladies have a show planned. Also check out for more videos to drop. We've had 3 videos drop in the past, well, certainly 48 hours. So do check them out if you haven't seen it. We have the post-mortem on the Acolyte, and then we also have the video on the succession at Disney, where we actually give some props to WDW Pro, who has done a masterful job covering that, whereas I focus more on what an absolute farce the entire succession process is. So check that video out. And with that, it is time for some koalas in the rain.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given, koala, koala, koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given.